completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen, the Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Hi, Allie.
Hey, Alan. How are you? Jeannie.
All right, we are starting the show.
We have launched.
I'm good.
Hi.
We've launched.
How are you?
We're doing it live.
Doing well.
All right,
thanks.
they must be you.
Good.
Launched.
Good.
I can hear you.
What's Layla doing?
She's sleeping.
You guys, we've started the show. You guys are interviewing each other.
We had a long
Oh,
day
my God.
today.
We have launched.
Nice.
Playing with
All
little
right, I
puppy.
think we're good.
Okay, is it working out? What are we doing?
We've launched.
By the way, Allie and Alan, your interview with each other and how you've been doing is our opening to the show tonight. Thank you for providing that for us. Somebody was muted and unable to hear us saying we're trying to go live.
It's because Justin's not here.
Yeah.
Where the hell is he? Unacceptable.
We have launched.
Well, I got to hear about Layla's exciting day today then, so.
All right. All right. So we're starting right now, episode number 489. The Ragnarok has begun. No idea what that means. Today's November the 5th.
It's a Thor reference. That'll be important later.
All right. That's good. As long as there's going to be someone there to explain it. Today's November the 5th, 2020. It's been kind of a busy week, you could say. A lot of stuff going on.
It's been a great week,
It's a pretty busy week.
We'll be talking
but
about
not
that.
for me.
It's been a long week.
It's not over yet.
I am. Tomorrow's Friday, finally.
It's been a great week. It's not over yet. My friend from Texas likes to sing that one.
Which, by the way, is waiting to be.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah. Justin's not here, so we're having some problems. All right, so it is Planet Green Trees, your 2 hours of discussion, entertainment, and topics of the day, focusing on medical cannabis and cannabis reform and some other stuff now and then. The topics we're going to talk about tonight is potentially a rant of some kind. Another topic possible is Mississippi governor slams liberal medical marijuana ballot measures as being driven by stoners. Attorney's breathalyzer inaccuracies more widespread than originally led on. This is Crime Lab Forensic Science Division scandal number 2. Jay-Z launches his own cannabis line called Monogram. And Oregon decriminalizes possession of hard drugs as 4 other states legalize recreational marijuana. And let me introduce everyone before we get to these topics. A lot of stuff to talk about. We can start with the people to blame for the delay originally, the Bunker boys. Justin's not here. Tommy's taking full responsibility and accountability. Of course, he doesn't have a microphone to respond to any of this, which is easy for me. Next, we have our dear friend Jim Powers, who's been very active discussions regarding politics. He is open for all kinds of talking tonight in light of the last week. Please welcome my dear friend Jim Powers.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here on this lovely evening with all of you, and looking forward to some animated discussion, hopefully, tonight. So it'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah, what could we be talking about?
I don't know, but we'll find out.
Next to Jim, we have a YouTuber in her own right, the operator and director of the Elevation Station, and quite a connoisseur on cannabis products. Please welcome Amanda Joslin.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. And looking forward to the show tonight. And I just have to say that we've got an awesome spread out there.
It's the best podcast spread in Michigan.
It really is.
For sure.
Incentivizing those of you
Maybe
who are on
nationally.
Zoom to maybe show up live sometimes, but
Yeah.
Alan Pisner,
so you fully understand that.
Jamie Lowell.
Not in the immediate vicinity, but very
Alyssa,
close
Jeff.
by, in what I would call like a constructive possession kind of situation. Here we have 1970s musician, star, retired police officer, and coming in hot.
Coming in hot.
Fly like an eagle.
Flying like an eagle. Take the money and run.
Trying to be productive.
Trying to be productive, not part of the maybe a new song he's coming out with. Yes. Steve Miller, the one and only.
I'm actually here.
Steve is here now. He he's here now, and he's committed to returning to the topic of movie reviews on
Yes.
Yeah, I
the
can't
CCE
wait.
corner.
Yeah, we got to get that going again.
Please
Yeah, we
welcome
do.
Steve Miller.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Sorry I missed last week.
You're excused.
It's not the same when you're not.
It really isn't.
It isn't.
All right. Well, I'll try not to let it happen again.
And moving to the Zoom room now, and moving around up there, I want to again emphasize that Oregon decriminalized the possession of hard drugs. And now, from Oregon, my dear friend Jeff Frazier, who's recently moved out. No, I'm kidding. That's funny. I was waiting to do that for each and every one of you, like, the states that have now legalized, like, they're moving here, they're moving here. Here's Alan Pisner from D.C., where they legalized them. Anyways, Jeff, we did recognize that it has been a long, long week, and it's not really over yet.
It's been a great week.
It's been a great week. Anyways,
You're muted. Jeff, you're muted.
Jeff is muted, so I don't know. You look like you've been doing your 9-mile walks daily, and you're looking healthy and robust.
I am. Walking is the best thing, but you're right. It's been a great week, and it's not even close to over yet, is it?
No, it is not. Curious to hear what your takeaway from the Texas electorate is. We're hoping to talk about that in a minute, but let's get our other introductions here. We have, of course, the Rasta Rabbi, Alan Pisner, looking a little bit more dressed up. I noticed he's changed his color tones.
Yeah.
He's trying to look a little more rosy. Maybe it's part of the fall season that's upon us, or into the harvest season, I guess. But please welcome Barrister Alan Pisner.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here on the Planet Green Tree Show. The color change you noticed is an attempt to coordinate colors with the other Komorn Law attorney on the show, McCormick. But I just want to say it's a pleasure to be on this show, the best medical marijuana show from the best medical marijuana firm. Also, I heard a rumor that this firm has got a favorable result on a murder case this week. I hope we'll hear about that.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that a little bit. I think we may dedicate some other kind of videotaping of that when get our client to come in, but I did want to talk about it. There's some remarkable things about it, but thank you, Alan, for those kind words. We have, of course, someone that contributed greatly, and as I said to her when I texted her, like, we lawyered the shit out of them. Good work, counsel. And also Jeff Frazier, of course, is part of that, and Alan Pisner. Everyone, the whole team here was, and Steve Miller, of course, even Jim and Amanda helped out. But Allie McCormick is here from Komorn Law.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Yeah, it was a great victory. I can't wait to talk about it.
Do you want to break the news to Alan that he has not really come close to matching the color scheme that he says he was trying to?
Not even close.
I mean, that's
Trying
like,
to do the rosy.
I'm wearing pink, Alan. You're
Right.
wearing red.
Time for an eye
Thinking
exam,
of,
Alan.
like Valentine's Day, Zoom room type of thing. And then Jeff has the red background over there. It's getting the whole, the whole mood.
like the
started,
mixture
I
of the
guess.
red, the pink, and the yellow matches Alan.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
maybe.
like a.
All right, of course we have looking very patriotic tonight. He is what you could say is the definition of the American. He's also responsible for everything. Please welcome. Glad to have him here, Jamie Lowell. Jamie.
Hello, glad to be here. Don't want to throw off the scheduled topics too much, but within the state, there were around 9 local cannabis-based initiatives that took place. And
How'd they do?
most of them did very well. Colin did not, but most of the rest did, including defeating ones that were trying to opt out. Up in North, where Rick and I had previously done some work and helped the council to opt in. Some citizens got together and put up a ballot to opt out, and that was defeated by about 57%.
Excellent.
Also, we are waiting to determine who's going to be the next president of the United States, and that information could be coming in anytime.
I think we all know.
I think the
Yeah,
writing's
I think
on the
we're
wall
really
on
pretty
that one.
I think we all know.
Some people are not accepting it, just saying, but we'll see what actually happens officially
We
soon.
could be getting another.
I
who knows
don't
what's
see a
happening.
path to
No.
a win for him.
Kanye's going to just spike into the lead here any minute.
Yeah,
I know
there
it.
was a meme about that.
I would rather have-
Doing a Google
I would
search
rather
on
have
what
that.
to do when you're president.
Wouldn't be surprising this year, something like that.
I'd rather have Kanye than the other two.
There's a funny. Who is the one with the Jed Clampett, which is them folks that are counting that Corona numbers, the same ones counting the ballots. I just got a kick out of that. I don't know.
That was fun.
But
that's a fun meme.
Jamie?
There's got to be a better way of counting votes.
Jamie, expand a little bit. I know that you guys did a live without any consideration for Planet Regions, but you did your own little election show and whatnot. How did that turn out for you Tuesday night? I'm sure that you guys got all the answers that you wanted that night.
You're talking about the normal? I didn't. Well, Michigan Normal did one. I just joined on to participate. I really had nothing to do with it. It was that group. It was very interesting. It peaked at maybe 14, 15 people at the biggest participation. But John Sinclair from his hospital room was on there. Tim Beck came in. Tim Kurkowski, who was involved with Pin Canada, who was the bass player for Sponge for about a decade.
Yes, he was. He recorded our band. He was a producer, and he was our A&R guy. My band did a recording with him and Andy Padlin from Sponge. They used to run the number 6 recording studio out of Novi, those guys.
So some cool people were in and out of that conversation, and it was pretty interesting. It was Dr. Whitty was on there. It was pretty interesting. Now, obviously, we only got so much information that night.
Right.
Election night, so we're still waiting to get some more.
Do you have what were the and we should talk about those, I guess, the ballot opting in or the effects of the local elections. What do you have to say? What do you have to report on that? Anything substantive?
Sam Pernick and his group actually went after like 18 cities. They only ended up with 3 on the ballot this time, and they're still in litigation with some others. They got great resistance. And in some cases, though, they might have taken on, too much, like added too much in the ordinance that's being challenged in a township. And there's an interpretation that says all you can do is opt in and say how many licenses of each, which could very well turn out to be true as far as the interpretation of that goes. But they tried to add a little bit more on, so they have that. But he went after places that that opted into the MRTMA by a decent percentage, so to have a good indication of where people are on the issue. And he won in Port Huron. He won in Putnam Township or Pinckney or something like that. In
Port Huron.
Yeah, Pinckney was interesting. That was that one took me by surprise.
What happened? Pinckney opted in?
Yeah.
And he based it on seeing what the local vote was on the MRTMA to give an indication. So that, they're the people support. That's a classic example of a small group of people making a decision for the community that wants something different. And that's why we included the ability to have the people's initiative even in townships and villages in the MRTMA.
Sorry, Jimmy, did you say Pinckney?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Did you say Pinckney?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Livingston County. Yep. Northport, as I said, had an anti or opt-out ballot measure that was defeated by like 57%. There was Constantine, which was like by the border. I believe it passed, but I didn't get the results on that. So it was an interesting night, and then of course nationally, and some of the subject matter tonight does focus on those results, but.
Yeah,
5 states that had positive results, and New Jersey in particular, a huge state in the Northeast for legalization. It's going to further the cause on its own.
Yes.
So very, very positive night for our cause anyway.
Yep.
New Jersey could be dangerous if Chris Christie gets the munchies.
Well, New Jersey had opted in a long time ago. For medical, and they never got the program going, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jamie?
It was so restrictive. It was impossible to work. It was never going to work. That was on purpose.
All right, who wants to name the states that opted in? Oregon,
We got
Mississippi,
Montana, New Jersey, and Arizona. And then Oregon did as you started the show with, the ultimate measure and decriminalized all drugs.
I think the District of Columbia.
Mushrooms, yeah.
Legalized.
Still 500.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, so that reminds me, famous quote by by Henry Ford, who said, if I would have asked them what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Anyways. It's funny, isn't it? It's right. So let's talk about, we got all these topics here. We've glanced over them a little bit. I mean, I got a legal story from this murder case. I was going to talk a little bit about it. It's kind of, it's long and
I was going to say, there was a show that was kind of based on this murder case, and it was really interesting. A lot of shit came out there, so to follow it up.
Well, we're going to do one of the...
What happened would be quite awesome.
We're going to try to do a little bit of that, a little more, because it is kind of a murder mystery story. We're going to try to piece it all together. But, so, to tell the story, it's, I think, there's so many different variables, but let me try to say it this way. So I've been following Eric Smith, the former prosecutor of Macomb County, on Facebook because I know he was going through a tortured time and that is being investigated for the slush fund forfeiture that was discovered. And then he had gone on television and tried to defend it while making all these terrible admissions, thinking he did nothing wrong, and did not look good for him. Obviously his office.
That's rare, right?
It's rare, and his office has been raided, his home had been raided. That's not normal, and things were not going well. So I was just kind of curious to see how somebody in that situation was reacting. And I see, and as I'm monitoring his Facebook posts and whatnot, he's basically, proclaiming how tough he is on crime, and the community should feel good, and he's doing all these things to put bad people away, whatever that means. So I read an article that he's talking about, clicked the link, followed it, where he's describing in great detail this homicide that took place that sounds awful. He basically describes how these three young men had somehow hooked up with a fourth guy and pulled over in a parking lot and literally beat him to death, and then left him there to die. That's like the story from that I'm reading Eric Smith quoted about in this news story, and I think to myself first, wow, not one time did he use the word alleged. And then I thought to myself, wow, if any of that's true, those guys are probably screwed, because that sounds terrible.
Well, also, the police chief, when he was making comments about it too, he never said allegedly either.
And then there was a comment about the police chief.
Do you want us to play the video?
Who also made the same statements and also seemingly created facts. And all right, yes, Ellie, I agree with that.
You want us to play the video?
Play the video.
All right.
Roll tape.
Failed to load. Hold on.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Stand by.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
We'll do it live.
Do it live.
Oh shit.
Do we have to watch this commercials? What
All
happened?
right.
You got it? Queued up?
Do we have sound?
Where's it go?
Whipping up some dessert teas.
Left on a worn roadway to die. Fox News' Amy Lang with more from Komorn.
You guys hear that?
Fighting. It's just after midnight on the 4th of July. Surveillance video from a business at Mound Road in Chicago captures part of it. You can see a car leave the scene, leaving 24-year-old Kenneth Klingler badly beaten.
All right, we're gonna have to start it over
Why?
because it's not transmitting the sound.
Sound's coming through.
Oh,
It's just really quiet.
Can you guys hear it?
On the ground. He struggles
You guys
to
hear
get up, then wanders out onto Mound Road and collapses.
I almost hit him in the middle of the road, and he was just lying in the center of the street. He's got blood coming out of his face. He definitely needs an ambulance. He's breathing barely.
A 911 call that leads Warren police here to what they think is a hit and run. But they quickly learn otherwise when they access the surveillance video, see the fight, and see the car involved, this Buick. Detectives say as they were next door looking at the surveillance video, the suspects pulled up here to this gas station, but they were not checking on the victim. Instead, they were looking for their shoes. Police say 23-year-old Christopher Zenfenning, a freelance photographer for WXYZ Channel 7, is also a martial arts expert. Police say he took off his shoes during the fight with Klingler and had returned to the scene with another suspect to pick them up.
The detectives went across the street, confronted them. They made admissions. They were arrested, 2 of them. And then the 3rd suspect was arrested over at the home on the street here in Warren.
Zen Fenning now charged with manslaughter along with Christopher Tworowski and Nathan Domagalski. Police say the 3 men had been at a party in Troy where they met the victim, Kenneth Klingler of Auburn Hills. He was down on his luck, police say. The men agreed to let Klingler stay at their house in Warren. But on the way there, Klingler attacked Domagalski in the back seat. That's when Zen Fenning pulled the car over and intervened.
They beat him to death. You know, it's a tragedy. I mean, they beat him, 3 of them. I mean, he suffered. He just had no chance. I mean, he had a fractured skull, other injuries that caused his death. It was senseless.
The chief crediting the detectives and the businesses for quickly providing surveillance video that quickly led to the alleged killers.
All right. Within 3 hours from the time we...
Okay, so I think even though here on the Zoom we couldn't hear that...
Bloom!
It was playing live, and what we heard...
We'll do it live.
What we heard was Chief Dwyer making all these comments how the police first thought it was a hit and run. Then they stopped because the suspect showed up at the gas station next door and made a bunch of admissions, and they stopped.
He had to get his shoes.
He had to get his shoes. And that there was a karate chop and, you know, this beat down or whatever. So that's how this case begins. That's the reporting of it. That's kind of the way it was reporting the story. And then of course, as it goes sometimes, we got retained in the case. And, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to explain this, but I think when we blew through all the discovery and whatnot, it was pretty obvious that it did not appear as if the way that the theory of the death occurred was consistent with the injuries, consistent with the video, or consistent with the version of the story told by the defendants, all 3 defendants, when they were subsequently interviewed, interrogated. And it's an interesting charge because while we have a dead body and it's considered a homicide, the charge is a homicide, it was not first degree, second degree, or it was manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, which is a death. I mean, there's different ways in which you can prove involuntary manslaughter, but the theory here was that a person committed a crime, to wit, a misdemeanor of some kind, that resulted in death. And the classic scenario of how
manslaughter is not a misdemeanor.
A misdemeanor, they committed a misdemeanor that resulted in somebody's death.
Someone's death. Got it.
The classic example is you slap someone across the face, and they, fall down, hit their head, and die.
Right.
Or slap someone across the face and you break something in their face and they bleed out or something like that. You know what I mean? Whereas it just intended to do the slap, and assault and battery, but you're certainly
but for your actions.
But certainly you didn't intend to commit the death, but you intend to commit the incident that could result in, or it's potentially foreseeable, I guess.
Yes.
But that was the theory by which they were driving this, and there was a number of different things that stood out to us that didn't make any sense. First of all, without getting into too much detail, there's a individual, and if I were to explain the story, the victim here, and I don't want to minimize what a tragedy it is, because it really is a huge tragedy, but it was exacerbated for a number of different things. One, it identifies the problems that we have still here in Michigan and across the country, probably the world, at dealing with people with mental health issues.
Amen.
The victim here was a young man who I understand had been estranged from his family, in and out of some, therapy, and not doing well at the time of this incident. It's unequivocal that he was heavily drinking when he arrived at the location that he did, where he first interacted with my clients. And what happened was he came to a party after drinking all day and ended up at this party, and my client and his 2 friends had been there, and the victim was real despondent. He was depressed outside, not wanting to interact with everyone, and the person whose party was, was asking him to come in and hang out, whatever. And when the party was breaking up, the victim had nowhere to go, nowhere to stay, and as it's kind of reported, the 3, my client and the 2 friends, were asked if they would allow this guy to sleep on their couch, to which they said, okay. It's sad that someone would need to try to find a couch to sleep on in that situation. Yeah. Again, one of the bigger tragedies, but they said okay, and they started driving to the house for that purpose. And
in early 20s, I mean, that's, not uncommon.
That's true. Ecology, right?
Yeah, that is,
Yeah, right. But nevertheless, on the way there, maybe the combination of the alcohol, something that said or whatnot, the victim got argumentative and started hitting people in the car, kind of outside of his passive demeanor that he had exhibited before. If you saw in the picture, the three gentlemen that were put up on their booking pictures, the one in the middle had a slash across his nose. That was my client. He actually broke his nose from this incident, and they pulled over into this parking lot with the attempt to try to pull this person out of the car so they could go about their business. And what they're showing, the fighting taking place in the parking lot, was because they were trying to get him out of the car, and when they did and tried to get back into the car, the victim would go and grab one of the three individuals. It turned into this Three Stooges episode of going in one door, grabbing the person's leg, another person coming out, grabbing his leg, back and forth, and he could not get free. Now, they released that video, which shows a car pulling out, and then they say that he was beaten to death and then walked over to this point in the middle of Mound Road and expired, where he fell face down.
Yeah.
And
that's what they say.
That's what they say, and they say that the death was caused by the incident that took place in the parking lot. Now, what's really tragic about this reporting, the way that detective here tells this falsity of wanting to beat them to death, but in fact, in the video, if it was played in its entirety, you see the victim expire into lane 3 of the 4 lanes of Mound Road. 1, 2, 3, and 4. He's laying in 3, and you see a car go by in lane 4. You see a car go by in lane 2. See a car go by in lane 4. See a car go by in lane 2. And you see a car go by in lane 4, 3, and 2. He is laying in lane 3. You see car in lane 3 bump when they go over where his body is. He was hit and killed by a car. Worse yet, one of the weird is the only way to describe it. As being a lawyer in this case, part of the discovery is examining the autopsy photos, and that's the kind of thing that once you see it the first time, you can't ever really forget it. And there's a damage to the brain, to the skull, that just from without a medical training, you'd think that that's not the type of injury that would come about from someone getting hit in the head, or if that was the allegation, or falling down to the pavement. Furthermore, there was like a squished grape indent on the pavement. There was squished, like, blood splatter near his head.
So clearly a traumatic event happened in the middle of Mound Road.
Right. And what had happened was this. After the autopsy, and with all the information, quote unquote, that was necessary as provided by the police, the medical examiner made a conclusion that the cause of death was head trauma. Blunt head trauma.
Imagine that.
Okay?
Imagine that.
From the fight.
Oh, from the fight.
Right.
Oh.
And
well,
and at some
sure
point
they just didn't have all the information.
At some point in time later on,
this is a lot more damaging than a car tire.
Yeah, of
obviously.
course. Yeah. Well, the car tire is made of rubber, Jamie.
No, okay. But the what happened is something that I don't think is not the norm. The medical examiner redid his report and made the conclusion that the cause of death was unknown or indeterminate.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't say it was from natural causes. Couldn't say it was from a car accident. Couldn't say it was from a beating.
And it bears repeating that the victim was highly intoxicated this entire time. So multiple elements.
Multiple elements are taking place there. But the point is that at this point in time, and the reason why he changed his opinion was because he didn't have the videotape.
No.
And what's kind of important in the case was this concept of this. You can shoot a person can be shot in the heart, and they can continue to walk for a certain period of time. Kind of I'm not going to use the example of the chicken getting his head cut off, but they get shot in the heart, they bleed out. so many seconds to the heart bleeds out, and they can no longer get blood to the brain.
Right.
As opposed to if you get shot in the brain, in your white matter of your brain, it eliminates any of your ability to function, and you fall down. So the type of damage the medical examiner concluded to the brain and the damage and seeing the white matter in the autopsy photos that had been gotten into led him to believe that this was an injury that was more akin to being shot in the brain and dropping down. Therefore, because this injury that killed him was like that he couldn't walk, it happened there on the road. It didn't happen in the parking lot. Otherwise,
Impossible.
he would not have been able to walk the distance before he fell down with the white matter being so badly damaged. Nevertheless, the prosecutor still continued with the preliminary exam.
The Macomb County prosecutor.
Macomb County prosecutor continued with the exam. Eric Smith did not prosecute it. He was outspoken about it. The police chief of Warren was outspoken about it, and someone in the homicide unit was assigned to it and prosecuted it like it was an important case to them and one that they believed was justified. I questioned this at the time because as the case went forward, sure enough, Eric Smith got removed from office. They put someone else in there, and I thought that would have ended it. I thought there was some kind of loyalty that they may have or feel to Eric Smith in continuing the prosecution because it made no sense. The change of the coroner's report, the ME's report, in and of itself would arguably create reasonable doubt. Not just that it's inconclusive, but that you have now an inconclusive report with a report that said the cause of death at the time the warrant was issued was
certainly
caused by
if
the
there's
beating.
enough doubt to influence the forensic examiner's report, there should be a reasonable doubt to prevent this person from going to prison.
In a way, it kind of reminded me of the lab reports that report we're not sure if it's marijuana or synthetic because it doesn't offer any evidence. It contradicts the positive, the putting forth of evidence. But they still continued on. And what was really remarkable is that they didn't just try to continue on, they tried to invent evidence. In fact, they...
But it doesn't sound like that was the case in this regard. It sounds like the forensic examiner did the right thing.
He changed his story, but then he was put on the stand and he made his case and we cross-examined him and he ultimately, he's concluding that I couldn't say that before, but after I saw the video, I was able to say that this is more likely from a car accident.
Right.
All right. But then...
But that's good. He changed his stance
he changed
in
his
light of
stance.
new evidence. That's
But,
great.
okay, that's true. But it took us a year before we got the second report because he never got the video. Who's in charge of getting the video? He's under the impression, he being the medical examiner, that when he writes his report, he has all the discovery. He's looked at everything.
Yeah, of course he does.
This new piece of evidence, how do you, should not have been denied him because he would have written a different report as it turned out. But nevertheless, we got to that particular point, and when he was basically X'd out of evidence to support the theory that the causation of the death was from a beating, they brought in the first responding officer who, for the first time we learned, was an accident reconstructionist. And they tried to make a case that it was not an auto accident because he's got some expertise in auto reconstruction expertise, when in fact there's no expert declared, there's no report written, and he was trying to, do you understand, he's trying to make his way around it
Throwing
and
a Hail
suggest
Mary
that
there.
there's no car accident that causes death. Now,
which at its root, and like we had discussed when this case first hit the news, you had a bunch of young men that had been out drinking and they got into a fight and they behaved badly. And at the end of the day, it was clear that someone that fell into the middle of Mound Road was not going to fare well for any length of time.
correct.
So, I agree with you, Michael. I think maybe the forensic examiner should have asked more questions.
Well, I think that the medical examiner did the right thing when he had all the evidence. And he didn't have all the evidence for reasons that I don't understand. And the only explanation for why he didn't have it is because it was kept from him, from the people that had it, that they knew, or if they didn't know, or they were neglecting realizing the significance of the video part of him walking and what impact that would play on that. And that's just, and that mistake, whether it's intentional or not, and I have a theory what it is, but I'm trying to be objective, is wrong and it should never happen, and you would expect more before someone's charged with a crime. That's number one. Number
Especially
two,
a 15-year felony.
especially in the associated with the cause of the death. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But even more so, what's interesting is you see the way a situation like this can escalate into actually getting charges against them. Because once they're in custody, they get statements out of each of them, you know, and
I'm sure they had a chance to confer with their lawyers.
There was
before
none of
then.
that.
Oh,
Not only that, they'd come from a party. They were probably intoxicated. In fact, they get statements from two.
Yeah, they picked them up at 4:30 in the morning.
4:30 in the morning, July 5th, 4th, or whatever it is. The two individuals, not my client, gave statements that night. They tried to interview my client, and after he is read his Miranda rights and signs his waiver, like 10 minutes into, they realize that he's not capable of, like, they don't understand. They said, we're just going to try again another day. Now, so they took this 10-minute statement and decided he's either too drunk, too concussed, or not cognitive enough to waive his rights. They then, even despite that happening, they went over to the court and got the 3 counts against each of the defendants, 3 individual involuntary manslaughter charges against each of them, based upon the dead body, the coroner's report, and the statement. But they didn't have the statement from my guy at this time. They just said in the swear to, they all confessed to doing it, which is not true. They then got a statement the next day, and watching the way that they manipulated the scenario, you know, they did not know that the guy had expired. Do you understand?
No, of course they didn't.
They had no idea to think that. So they ask some questions, blah,
It was
blah,
like
blah.
a my cousin Vinnie moment.
Then throw that at him, and
I shot the clerk.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot about that part, but that's what it was. Just shocking them. Anyways, so these are just some of the holes in the case which we intend to draw out in our legal analysis, which will be hosted by Michael Komorn, Komorn Law, and Allie McCormick, with input from Jeff Frazier and Alan Pisner. But we continued on with the case. Ultimately, all the testimony was given. The prosecutor closed the record. Judge, that's all the evidence we have. And the judge said, why don't the parties, outline their legal positions, even throwing out there a couple cases that were bothering him that he wanted the parties to try to analyze and explain in the context of each of our individual defendants. And there's a lot of interesting ways that could have gone. I think one of them, and it just so happens it could be any way or the opposite, but of the 3 individuals, and I'm not just saying this now, my client was the least culpable. It was obvious, you know what I mean? So they clearly, this decision could have involved, binding over, we're just in the preliminary exam, binding over for the 2 and letting my guy out because he was least involved. And he is not the driver. He had no control over pulling away, right? All right, so, and another important part is that there may be culpability if there was a legal duty to act. In other words, some states require a Good Samaritan to act. One state, like Vermont or New Jersey or something like that. But the basic rule in this area is if you act as a Good Samaritan, try to help someone, you have to act reasonably. Like, if you throw someone a buoy that's drowning and the buoy weighs, got concrete in it and kills them, you could arguably be responsible. See what I'm saying? If you I don't know, doctor and you help someone having a heart attack and fuck it up, you could arguably be responsible. I don't know. But the point is that's why people may not engage in...
Well, there's Good Samaritan laws that say as long as you were acting in good faith, you can't be held liable.
Like if I do CPR and I...
Exactly. Because it is a problem. If you could be held liable, it's...
You have no duty to. If you do take on the duty...
No, you do have a duty to. But that means you're acting in good faith.
You don't have a duty to be a Good Samaritan.
You don't. But once you start...
You have to do it reasonably is the word.
Right.
Okay? You have to act like any other person in that situation.
But if something happens because of your incompetence, there's no liability.
Yes, there is.
There was a case...
I don't think so. I think Michigan has a Good Samaritan law that specifically says...
It may have changed. I'm just talking total memory from law school.
There were a couple of teenage boys in Florida. You may remember this, and they didn't act. There was a disabled, and there was somebody drowning,
Right.
And they did not call for help, and they were filming and stuff like that. But that it was determined that they were not responsible
Right.
for, although it's terrible, they're not legally responsible to act.
Yep. Michigan has a good Samaritan law. It just doesn't cover you if there's gross negligence or willful and wanton misconduct.
All right, so it's more than that. You got to prove a little bit more, like kind of bad faithy stuff in order to.
Yeah,
But,
like-
all right, but there's some. Once you take on the duty,
Yeah, you
have
gotta keep going.
Got to keep going. So,
You can't decide to quit right in the middle of
But-
CPR.
No. No.
or at least if you're going to do CPR, not break their ribs and not know how to
On
do
purpose.
it. You know what I mean?
On
that-
purpose.
Leave if you can avoid needing to defend yourself in a fight.
Yeah.
That's the ticket, unless you're in your own
That's
home.
right.
However, we really didn't want to raise the issue of an affirmative defense at the preliminary exam because it's not really. But that's the area that we're kind of playing. Anyways, the judge throws cases at us to discuss and think about. Two other lawyers, and Allie did a phenomenal job helping putting the whole thing together and articulate our positions. And it kind of was out there, sent over the wall, received by the prosecutor's office, the court, and the lawyers. And then our prosecutor, his name can remain nameless at this point, was somehow caught up in the Eric Smith scandal. With allegations involving him taking $5,000 cash in a stairwell. Do we have the article, Tommy?
We'll pull it up.
This is all public record. I'm not. He had it before. There
it is.
Where? You see it?
Federal officials said Macomb County Prosecutor Eric
That's
Smith
not the one. It's the one about
had
the
a
other-
secret
The other
talk.
prosecutor. Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, did I make that?
Secret talk in a stairwell.
I got the Macomb.
Okay. There you go, right there. That's the one. So this article says, is that right? He helped. Okay, I was looking at something else before. So he helped his former boss, Eric Smith, engage in a $20,000 kickback scheme, has been suspended from his job, remaining nameless, but you can read it right there, who has worked in the office for 9 years, was placed on paid administrative leave money for his alleged role as Prosecutor A in former Prosecutor Smith's scheme to convert $20,000 of campaign funds for personal use. So, in the middle of all this, our prosecutor gets removed from... What? What's that? In the middle of the case, our prosecutor waited on him to write his response. He's not filing it. He's not doing anything. He's all of a sudden off the case. This is even a good argument. I was trying to figure out, Alan, Jeff, why does everything that he took place in court stand up to lawyer scrutiny when we know prior to that he was doing such mischievous things? Now, I should say, of course, he's presumed innocent until proven guilty, but, you know, you lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas, as they say. But with all that being said, in this case kind of looming out there, no response from the prosecutor's office, you know, year and a half of being in peril, so to speak, 3 young men, lives turned upside down, lawyers working diligently at all hours of the day, night to do everything they can to secure his freedom. And we learned that a new prosecutor signed to the case, and he gives a call on Monday and tells me, and I know him from back in, we kind of grew up as young lawyers in Wayne County, which part of his DNA, I'm going to say, because I don't know, for whatever that means. But anyways, he calls me and says, you know, Mike, I read all the transcripts, watched the videos, 10 hours of, you know, taped interviews, and not just the 3 defendants, but also the other interviewed witnesses, and looked at all the ME reports and the pictures from the autopsy. And I sat down to try to write a response to your pleadings and the evidence we put forth as to why this case should be bound over, and I couldn't do it, Komorn. I honestly could not write a response that I thought was not was based in law or fact. So I'm going to be filing with the court a dismissal on Wednesday. Of course, the court was closed Tuesday, Wednesday. What's today? Thursday may still be closed today. We're not sure. But said I'm dismissing the case. He said when I looked at all this, I then went to the new current interim prosecutor, who's not
Pete
Lucida yet.
Which,
it's not Crazy
congratulations, Pete Lucida.
Pete Lucida won. He's
friend of the show.
But there's there's a temporary prosecutor.
Temporary relief prosecutor.
And the second in command, who was second in command with Eric Smith and also remained there.
She was not second in command.
No, she was not, but Catalda was. He was like the chief of trials. He's one of his, and he was also consulted on this. And after they consulted chief of trials and the current head prosecutor, they then went to the appellate department where they got the same confirmations. You have these three different internal individuals or agents within there that all confirmed his understanding that this is not a case that should have been brought, should not have been prosecuted, and they agreed with his opinion that the case should be dismissed. And so he dismissed the case, dismissing the case, and the case is over. But
did those guys, were those gentlemen in jail this whole time?
Oh yeah.
They were in jail for some period of time. They had to pay a lot of money to get out on bond. They had to have tethers paid weekly and monthly to the bond people and whatnot.
No, it's not.
But
20 minutes.
I mean, if you're talking about manufacturing a case, and you were going to look at the script of how to get there, some of the things I just described is how it happens. You have a prosecutor polluting the jury pool on Facebook so that when those jurors get called in for this trial later on, they've read the story of stuff that they're not going to hear about during the trial.
They would have never won this case in front of any jury. No way. No friggin' way. Anyone with half a brain could see what happened and knew exactly what happened. That bunch of young men, again, were out fucking around, and unfortunately, a young man lost his life, and that's tragic, but it was certainly not the fault of these boys.
Big J for Jimmy.
All right.
Well,
these are delightful.
Well, Jimmy, I agree with you. That's the position that we took. That's the position we were going to argue to the jury. We are a year and a half or more into this case until justice was served. First of all, the Macomb County prosecutor, the assistant prosecutor that took over and took the initiative to say, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to make my decision independently, is how it is supposed to be. Now, that's something that should be pointed out here. This is a remarkable act in a world where there's ongoing injustice. We operate in a broken system, and the prosecutor is the bully in the system.
It's a good day.
I would say that this prosecutor, goddamn him, makes me believe a little hope in the criminal justice system. That some individuals actually have integrity law, and they are interested in actually doing what they took an oath to do, and that they recognize as a prosecutor a conviction only has integrity if it's fair and justice is sought, and the other side has competent representation. And he didn't see that here. But the point is, this is such a rarity that people that get hired into offices do whatever they're told to do. Their assistants, go do this, go be my hunchman. And what's the reality? There's no liability. There's no, they're immune like everybody else. All the stuff that they do.
Oh, to be immune.
Well, I read to you some of the things that they may not be immune for, which is what slander, libel. That doesn't take place in a courtroom. They don't need to be out in the press.
I don't disagree with you, and
we'll see about that.
You should have known better.
We'll see about that. But here, I'll tell you, I agree with. I would like to believe that there's no way in hell they would be convicted. But do you understand? You could be.
Yeah. I do.
There's a jury.
It shouldn't have gone this long.
Is there 12 people out there that could see this thing and find him guilty? Of course there are.
I mean, I guess.
What do you mean?
The only way that would have happened is if you were not representing the young man,
I'm saying
Michael,
if
that he had
that's
some
fine. That's fine.
unqualified twit.
But that's fine. But this case could result in a conviction with the wrong lawyer.
Any case could. Yep.
Okay, right? So let me tell you how it gets fabricated and how it gets manufactured. And I'm saying to you, it starts with the prosecutor imputing the jury pool later on without even using the words alleged. Because what happens is when juries are convened, they're going to search the internet to find out about the lawyer, about the case, about the prosecutor.
Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't?
They want to, right? They're not supposed to do that, but that's going to happen, and he knows it. In his way, well, they're going to be told not to, but it happens anyways. That's number one. The influence by the police chief speaking out. What is he talking about? I looked, Ellie and I looked. We read thousands of pages of discovery. None of it ever says what they say. There's nothing about a karate chop. Nothing about a shoe.
Well, it's Bill Dwyer, man. I mean, he's...
all right. But you see, it just
been
sounds
sensationalist for years.
Yes.
Ever since he was with Farmington Hill.
Plays well to the crowd here. And then you have, a prosecutor who is so committed to the, cause that he's working for that he's going to say and do anything. You know,
and karma bit him in the ass,
How
didn't it?
old is Bill Dwyer? He's got to be like 90.
Oh, he's old. Bill Dwyer is mighty old.
90 years.
He's got great hair. He fits right into McComb.
What's that supposed to mean?
Yeah. What do you mean by
There was anyone that practiced law in Macomb County will know that a bunch of years ago, one of the requirements to be on the Macomb County Circuit Court bench is you had to have a pompadour hairdo. I don't know. I don't know anybody to say it. A bunch of old white guys with white hair.
He's
They
right.
got up early and had
He's
blow
right.
dryers and,
Yeah.
like a flip and stuff, like Elvis-y. I don't know. That's what that
It's
was.
almost like they're trying to bring the wig back.
But these are guys that are showing off their
legal
silver
way.
hair. Do you understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? These are
Silver fox.
They draw the
silver
power
foxes,
from the silver
70-year-old
hair.
silver foxes.
It's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, because so many women out there probably want them.
Listen, I'm just telling you, Macomb is its own animal. If you
It
know what
really
I'm talking-
is. It's always a good time in Macomb County.
His hairdo, do you see his hairdo? It's kind of, he spent some time in the morning. He's put
yeah.
something in it. It's got definitely a blow dryer's coming out, right?
Oh yeah, for Dwyer for sure.
Oh yeah.
Dryer,
Even
dryer.
Fouts, I
He's
think, is
probably got
probably
a
blow
makeup.
I'm
drying.
telling you, it's part of the thing. I'm sure that there's a store that they all go to that get a certain brush and a certain comb and a certain spray and a certain hair dryer. I promise you.
Standard.
I heard Bill Dwyer has a team on hand from the local cosmetology school, and they're there.
It's probably
ready
Is
to
that right?
ready to whip him up
On
into.
standby.
No, I'm kidding. But it wouldn't surprise me if he did.
So what I was saying is this: the prosecutor here did this remarkable act in this system that is unbending.
Yeah.
He would not
was remarkable.
he would not take a compliment. Because only a person of that kind of integrity would not think he's doing anything remarkable. I'm just
No,
doing
he's like,
my
this
job.
is my job.
No, but
Exactly.
Bravo.
We look
Amen.
at it as holy fucking.
Right.
You're
You
doing
did-
your job.
you did
Oh
the
my
right
the
thing.
God.
right thing, trying to bring true justice to the whole
But I
situation.
I can't even tell you.
It's a great
Imagine
sign.
that.
And the manufacturing of this, because here we are. Now we're in district court, even after the change of the. Here's a good question to ask. What do you? Whether we're right or wrong, what do you think the legal chances are of the district court judge, who we've mentioned in the past, tossing this case at exam?
No way.
It
Okay.
wouldn't happen.
The issue that is because we're now back to the popularity issue of judges elected. He's going to be like this case gets a little bit of press.
And it's easy to punt. I find there's probable cause.
There you
That's
go.
easy.
There
So
you go.
easy to punt an exam. They shouldn't. Why do they even go through the whole process of the exam? It seems so ridiculous.
Because that's where I
Michael.
make my case, brother. Don't ever talk about getting rid of the exam, okay? I get a lot of stuff out of that.
That's his time.
I know,
It's
but
his pleasure, Steve.
Yeah, it is frustrating because you think we're going to go through all that. You know why? Because the I don't know. Is it?
yeah, it's about time. Let's. We should probably wrap it up.
But the manufacturing of a murder is
Well, we can keep going, but
All right.
we got to take a break.
Let's take a break. I think we're
We're gonna
the
enjoy.
for
a
those
little
listening,
herb with our
we
dessert
suggest that you
teas.
put together some dessert tea,
Dessert teas.
warm it up, and meet us back in 7 minutes after the commercials, and we'll continue on with Planet Green Trees, episode 489. The Ragnarok has begun.
Yes. You're listening to Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Hey folks, this is Amanda Joslin with the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Law, aired on Planet Green Trees TV. We're here in East Tawas, and man is it beautiful weather, but a little windy. We're about to do a review on the Botanical Company. I'm here with Danielle, and we're at the Botanical Company in East Tawas. Tell us a little bit about your location here.
So we are in Northeast Michigan in the beautiful town of East Tawas. We opened in October of 2019 with our medical license, and then February of 2020 we got our recreational license. We have been warmly welcomed by this community, so we're so excited to be here. And obviously you can always find us on Weedgrass and Leafly with any location information.
Very nice, okay. All right, so let's hear about some of the products that you carry here at the Botanical Company.
Definitely flower is a fan favorite here, so we want to make sure that our flower selection is very strong. And then obviously we're always listening to our guests and making sure that any new products coming online, we're getting them in as soon as possible and they're available for sure.
Tell me about another thing that may make Botanical Company a little unique.
I would say it's our aggressive loyalty program. Tawas is a fantastic tourist town through the summer months, but we know once those tourists leave, we have to make sure that we're doing right by our local demographic. So we wanted to make sure that our loyalty program was aggressive for them, so they were coming back and spending their hard-earned bucks and getting the best bang for their buck.
Very nice. Okay, so tell us about how somebody would get started here. I understand you have both adult use and medical use. So what would somebody that's looking to sign up, what would they need to have?
On the medical side, you just need your valid NMJ card and a valid driver's license or state ID. And then on the recreational side, you just need a valid ID. And then really we want to make it very friendly and make it a place where either if you're new to the cannabis lifestyle or very well versed and know exactly what you want, we just want to make sure it's a friendly atmosphere to come on in and spend as much time with our budtenders as you'd like to.
So other locations, what can we expect from the Botanical Company, Danielle?
We're so excited. We have our vertically integrated facility being built as we speak in Lansing. Such a strong cannabis culture there. That will be our cultivation, processing, and provisioning. That really is our flagship location.
Very exciting.
So November 1st, we hope to have provisioning open there. So we're just over the moon about that.
Yeah.
And then also, up in the wonderful town of Kalkaska. Such a great cannabis vibe in that town, we love it. We're going to be opening provisioning and then also social use lounge, which is just, we're so excited to be able to come and get your products. They're right next door to each other. You can come and shop and go next door and just check out some music or hang out, and we're over the moon about it.
I can't wait.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to be making another trip up north to take a look at not only the provisioning center, but also the lounge. And I understand there's going to be some awesome Kalkaska Kush.
Oh, Kalkushka.
Kalkushka.
For our friends at Real Leaf Solutions.
Very nice.
And it is something that you can currently find at Tawa Store, and we will be obviously providing that at all of our locations, and it is phenomenal. Try it if you can find some.
So keep your eyes open, folks, and we'll be reporting more with their Lansing location and their Kalkaska location. This is Amanda with the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Law and aired on Planet Green Trees. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.
Hi, this is retired Sergeant Steve Miller, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
Alrighty, we're back. Thank you for staying with us. I hope everyone has their dessert tea in hand and it's warm and
Dessert
filled up
tea.
to the top of your cup and flowing over even.
With honey, I would hope.
Flowing over. May your cuppeth flow over. To know the story, I mean, there's no, we're done with that. We move on. And now the next topic is one of 5. We can start with the Oregon decriminalizes possession of hard drugs as 4 other states legalize recreational marijuana. Let's pull that one up. Here we go. So, so this is the they legalized all hard drugs, right? So the
No, they decriminalized hard drugs, and you get 2 choices, I believe. It's only for basic user amounts in possession, but you can either pay $100 civil fine, or they offer free assistance to get you into a program if you have a problem.
That's my idea. That's been my idea all
That's great.
along.
They credit it to Steve Miller.
Good.
They did.
They should,
Detective in Michigan, I'm pretty sure.
Because I've been talking about that at least for 2 years. That's what they should
That's
do.
common sense, and this is a huge step into approaching drug addiction as a public health issue as opposed to a criminal justice one.
Right. Get it
So,
out of there.
Bravo.
Get it out of that
Congrats to
venue.
Oregon, doing it right.
Is this an Antifa movement thing, do you think? But we got to be careful.
No, this is common sense. I mean,
It is. It's common sense.
Most people,
But
and
Oregon's gotten all this bad rap about not being able to control their.
no, it's just because people don't really. Again, people don't, like we were talking
Isn't it in a
earlier.
way
they don't.
It's an anti-police measure. Like if you're
No, it's not anti-police.
It's not.
It's pro-police. The whole thing is pro-police because you know what? It allows.
But it limits their power to arrest for things that they normally would do, right?
Terrific, but it also
good.
frees them up to focus on things that matter.
Yeah.
Crime against other
Property
people,
protection in the
property
community.
crimes,
Rape,
Yeah.
murder.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Get back to the days of walking the town and shaking doors in the middle of the night and making sure your businesses are all secure so people can come open them up in the morning and have a nice place to live and work. Let's get back to that kind of policing.
Shaking doors. That
Sure.
sounds.
And as far as people being receptive
Shaking
to it,
doors. You're making sure that all the doors are
Yeah.
locked in
Yeah,
town.
just making sure
And
they're
when you
locked.
find one that's unlocked, you call the business owner and say, "Hey, I found your thing unlocked. I think I can lock it for you. Or do you want to come in here and check to make sure nobody got in here and do it?" That's the kind of policing I used to do in the town of Milan.
right?
I know, but I'm saying like the idea that the shaking of the doors maybe bring up, like in today's world, like if someone's trying to enter your house, it could be, I
Right.
understand. We've got a
But
long.
I'm talking about like businesses in
Right.
town in the
Right.
middle of night when they're closed.
I like the idea that would happen. I'm saying like I think that there was probably a time when police would do that.
Yeah, I did it 30 years
Yeah, I'm
ago.
saying even to residences, but we've gotten so far away from that being okay that it's gotten.
Yeah. Yeah.
So worried about it, but so. Are we interested in this because it seems like this is a beginning of something that may catch on elsewhere? Obviously, the war on drugs
Should be a nationwide mandate. No, I think the program's terrific. It's a great starting
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. I'm with Jim.
Okay.
And you take all of that money that we wasted in incarcerating these people and pump it into public health. And you see what happened in Portugal. Addiction and abuse rates dropped by 50% after 10 years. And it's incredible. Incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They had a needle exchange.
Mm-hmm.
They would also see. The problem is that what about the people that can't get it then after that? Right? I mean, And what are you going to do about that? Is this the next step for the state to provide it for people?
No.
Tax it? Why not?
We're just not there yet.
But is that a step that's going to happen?
I mean, I personally believe that regulation and legalization is probably the only way to truly control it.
Why do we need to control it, though? Can we ask ourselves that question?
Well, because it's
Why
safe,
does
it's
it
safer
need to
for
be
people.
controlled?
I mean,
It's still illicit.
If people are doing heroin, it's safer for them to do something they know to be heroin and to dose it properly.
And the risk
and
of getting
it sounds insane, but if you really take a step back and you say, what is the goal here? If the goal is to treat it as a public health issue, then it starts to make a little bit more sense.
Clean needles and consistent understanding of what the purity level is and all that kind of stuff, right?
And to be clear, I'm against all of that shit. And
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking in terms of like mushrooms and acid and that kind of.
No,
I
I'm
wasn't
talking
thinking-
about crack,
I wasn't thinking
cocaine,
about the crack and the
heroin,
and
Crack,
things
cocaine,
like
and heroin,
methamphetamine,
meth.
and it has to be across the border. The program doesn't work.
Right.
But Portugal did something very similar, like I said, and the results have been outstanding. And ultimately, the citizenry wins on all fronts.
Yes.
What it also does is it eliminates the violence associated with. I mean, it frees up the police activity with those that are using. Right. That's the first thing.
Mhm.
It provides some kind of public health service for them if they want to take advantage of it.
Mhm.
It doesn't eliminate the poverty, and it doesn't eliminate the associated amount of money that's necessary to keep the habit going.
Yeah, but that never-ending cycle, that vicious cycle that these people get stuck in, because what happens, right? They get caught with a
Sure.
felony amount of drugs.
They go to jail.
They go
can't
to
get out.
jail.
At least they got an addiction.
They get out. They're
They
still
don't have a job.
addicted to drugs. They can't get a job because they have a felony on their record. What happens? They break the law again. Whoop, back into court. And maybe they're breaking the law just by using. They may be breaking no other laws. Who knows? But
I mean, but here you go. How can you decriminalize for users and not address the issue of
the supply? I know.
It's like the thing with caregivers. You know, it's like how do you?
I get it.
You know what I mean?
But
It's
I
okay.
don't see the, and that. And I'll be honest, this is my bias. This is my bias. I don't see a problem with it because at the end of the day, I still don't. I don't encourage use of those substances.
No, hell no.
But if there's a demand for it,
right,
there's
and
gonna be a supply for it.
that's the next step.
Well,
and it's a commercial
ultimately,
and
let's
regulated
fantasize-
system.
Let's fantasize. How do we get there next from there? Then, if the idea is to really,
Well,
I mean, you're not going to stop the desire for people to take heroin,
No.
cocaine, or crack.
No, you make
Jamie,
it,
what do you say?
A couple mil and do a ballot measure here.
Yeah.
But what's the answer, Jamie? After we've decriminalized, or even decriminalized or legalized or whatever, whatever, something to all these drugs. What about the supply? Because again, like you said, there's not a consistency of it. If you're really gonna address it as a public health,
that's the next
by having a safe way to use it, whether it's just for partying, there's a demand, whether it's for addiction,
Whatever.
Okay, but I'm saying there's still a supply that is profiting from it,
Yep.
and all the negative, illegal profiting from it is what creates, arguably, the violence. I mean, prohibition creates all this, right?
Of course it does.
So you
that's
can't
that's
have.
the reason you can't just ban it. You have to. The only way to really truly control it is to legalize it and regulate it. It's the only
That's
way.
what I'm saying. So if the first step is just to keep the low-end drug users and get them some options for getting clean.
And that proves to the people that, hey, this is a good idea, because the problem, and it's a valid concern, right? I'm a parent, you guys are parents. The first thing is, well, if it's legal, then my kids will want to do it. And it's just not the case. So once people understand that the boogeyman's not going to come,
Right, okay,
and all of
but-
a sudden all the kids are going to start doing drugs, or that just society in general is going to start doing drugs, once they understand that that's not the case, then we can start having the discussion of, okay, how do we control the supply and regulate it and make it safe and get rid of the black market completely?
Under your theory, though, and you're not really answering the question, but I just want to point one thing out, then we can move it on a little bit. But if it's true that this methodology is proven to reduce the number of users over time, then do we really want to even consider the supply? Is it going to go away?
No, it
Of
will.
course it's not gonna go away.
It'll
Of
never
course
go
not.
away.
So the question is, what are we going to do about that? Let's fantasize about that, because you're just accepting this the first step, and then we kind of reduce this part, and then people will see and we'll grow into the next. Let's assume that happens. Let's assume we can show that this, X amount of dollars are saved. There's fewer people in jail. We got,
less people are using drugs.
Less people are using drugs, and more people are fixing.
Less people are ODing from drugs.
Right.
Fewer
Transmitting
ODs.
diseases between each other.
Right. Okay. So now we have all that. Now let's talk about the issue that it's still expensive, still dominated by, cartels and imports and danger, and all that stuff creates all these other issues. What's the answer to that? How do we get to the next step? Is Jeff frozen? Does Jeff know he's frozen?
How do we get to the next step? The first thing we have to do is win over the people, and that is not going to be a short order. I mean, I can tell you that I've had this conversation with many people over the years, and when they hear that I would propose that we just legalize everything, they're shocked.
Yeah.
And what
I
ends up
say it to
happening is
people-
I have a conversation with them and explain why. And I have data to back up what I'm saying. And once we get through the end of the conversation, I've never had someone say, well, you're not right. You're not wrong. I mean, the problem is being able to morally align themselves with this decision. And the problem is that people take this inferred, connection between themselves and what society allows. And ultimately they say, well, if I allow for drugs to become legal, then I'm saying it's okay. And that's not what's happening at all. It's okay to continue to say drugs, especially when we're talking about drugs that can seriously harm you, are bad. And you should tell your kids and help inform them that they should make good choices and not do that shit.
Drugs are bad, okay?
Drugs are bad, okay? But it's just, at the end of the day, should they end up in jail? Or worse, in prison because they, made a judgment error or are truly inflicted with addiction.
Nobody should be in prison for that, and nobody should be in prison for just essentially operating in a monetary and business system that's outside of what the government says is acceptable. Just because you're operating business in a different way, what is the norm is no cause for somebody to go to prison, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's this is what I'm getting at, Steve. You raised an important point. I can understand how we know enough. We've interacted with enough nice people that mean well and, maybe don't, by virtue of many different circumstances, environment, etc., operate in a world of taxing and reporting of income, etc. You know what I mean? They don't operate in that world. Now, I don't know. Some people take issue with it. Some people don't. You're not, but I think it's a harder sell to suggest that if the answer here that we're talking about is, well, what does he do? He supplies the heroin to the users who are decriminalized for using it, and he makes X amount of dollars, and we're okay with it. Like in a community that may not be a thing, right? But I can understand where we're going with it.
Or maybe that's not it. I mean, maybe it's the pharmaceutical companies making it. I mean, highly regulated. Well, the whole idea is to make it safe and to control it.
They just make it in the oxys,
right?
And Norco, and
right, exactly.
That.
And this would be no different.
Heroin,
right.
So
in Mexico, you can go into a pharmacy in Mexico and you don't need a prescription, and you can get whatever you want: Vicodin, oxys, steroids, whatever. They don't have lines up out the door of people to go in and get this shit. So essentially in Mexico, you can walk into a pharmacy and get heroin in the form of Vicodin or Oxy legal. And I've been there. I was in Juarez, and we walked in. My sister used to go there and get her kids' prescriptions, and because one, it was a lot cheaper, and two, it was easy, and it didn't
Cash
appear to be a problem.
Some trouble down in Juarez.
Did he?
He did with pills, I believe.
Hold on, so I was going to say though, Jim, your point of people not getting arrested and saving money in the
It's not just them getting arrested. It's the whole process of prosecuting them and incarcerating them.
I know. My point is the same narrative is what pushed the marijuana issue over the edge.
Sure, because
other
it
words,
makes sense.
Well, it makes sense because if you frame it like everyone needs to use cannabis, it's good, it like I like it, versus it's not fair that people are being locked up when alcohol is legal, right? Or that it's a waste of time and et cetera. So I think that I agree with you on that, but that still appeals to the user. The user is seen differently as the supplier, and I still am having a difficult time in this scenario of seeing how this thing evolves, absent, some kind of regulating by the government and making these illegal drugs available.
Well, they wouldn't be illegal anymore.
Making them available now through government, whatever.
Through the pharmacy.
Through the pharmacy.
Why the pharmacy? Why would we want the pharmacies to be involved with this? Wouldn't we rather?
I'm not saying that.
Wouldn't we rather
because
have,
it's a built-in.
like mom and pop businesses buying cocaine from Peru and Bolivia.
It's a built-in distribution system. That's why. If you want to light this up tomorrow,
with high standards for like consistent dosing and purity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jim's right on with that.
What's that?
The pharmacy.
It's highly regulated. The systems are already built.
Why would we want to do this?
I'm not saying why we want to do it. I'm saying why that's what would happen.
Why can't we build the same mechanism?
They're going to manufacture heroin for us.
Maybe. I mean, in this different world that we would live in, because at that point, I mean, keep in mind that you could just go to the pharmacy and say, "Hey, I want X."
Yeah.
And they couldn't keep it from you.
Right.
So it would be the same thing.
It's the perfect scenario.
Why can't I'd rather go to a not pharmacy that's not made by a pharmaceutical company and get it from a mom and pop or a Michigan State licensed place that manufactured it?
Well, then I guess it'll just remain illegal then, sir.
No, I'm saying if the state, first of all, if it's going to happen, it's not going to happen at a federal level, so you might as well forget that as a reality because the pharmaceutical companies are not going to be engaged in. So let's get to another realistic.
Well, I think that's the only way
if they
that.
found out they're going to make some money, they're going to get engaged in it.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly,
well, they could get involved with marijuana now, but it's still illegal federally. And the likelihood of that happening,
I don't know if marijuana is an ideal substance for the pharmaceutical companies to take over. But
Really? What about
these other hard drugs, I think, are right up their alley.
Listen, they spent the last 15 years trying to get dronabinol.
Yeah, and they failed miserably.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that they didn't see the. If they think that they're going to, do you know how much money they probably spent to get dronabinol and Marinol onto the market? How many gazillions of dollars?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, so it's not like they aren't going to try. There's going to be an incentive for them to do that.
Yeah,
want to
but
be
you
part
know
of it.
what? These hard drugs are right up their alley.
Yep.
Totally. Jim is so on with this.
I think that we could all
They
learn how
could turn it on tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You can grow poppy. Is it growing poppy illegal?
I don't know. Is it?
No, you can grow poppy. I could grow poppy and extract. Then it becomes.
But
then it becomes illegal.
The question becomes: Can people do it safely?
First of all,
these hard drugs
shouldn't
are
people
not.
be able to? I mean, if we're talking about it, one of the ways to do it is you allow people to grow in their home. You allow people to grow cocoa plants. You allow them to grow fucking.
I mean, whatever.
What do you mean, whatever? I'm saying like.
I mean, whatever. If
I'm
it's
saying-
for your own personal use, whatever, man.
Well, that's
if
a way
that's
to-
what you want to do.
That's one of the ways to be able to eliminate. But then you have the same problem. You got like a caregiver who's got
you don't
10
wanna
people
get
that
involved.
they're
Pharmacy.
And he's
Yeah.
got to figure out how to extract it
Right
without
to the
blowing
farm.
That's why it can only
people
be
learn
for
how to
your
grow
own person.
marijuana in a basement. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
but
if
it's,
they're gonna go out-
super
different.
easy and it doesn't.
Yeah.
It requires zero processing.
It's a plant versus chemical processes.
Is it? I don't think it's that hard to grow poppy.
It might not be. The problem is the actual creation.
I think the
processing,
extraction method is probably quite difficult.
and whether it can be safe. Because that ultimately is the goal. If you're going to create a supply system, it has to provide safety and harm reduction. And
Okay, are
That's
people
the
getting
pharmacy.
unsafe and harm promoting marijuana right now through the state system?
Well,
Yes or no? Yes or no? Not well. Yes or
right
no?
now, at this exact moment, I don't believe so. No, I think the state's done a pretty good job.
Okay, so
I
the
think
point is
the
they're
caveat
capable.
is those.
They're capable of taking an illegal federal drug
Yeah, but
and giving license out to people and a mechanism and a system to create the supply,
Mm-hmm.
right? So maybe they're not making it. Maybe there's contracts. Maybe there's not as many. You know, I mean, why not create an industry for some other people that doesn't the pharmaceuticals? I mean, you're creating
I don't
new
know.
licenses for state operators acting as like, you know, nationally approved pharmacies, but they're really state approved.
Yeah.
Why would we not think of that as a job option? I mean, people could buy the.
Just because there's already a system built.
But what if the state of Michigan started buying
That's why.
bulk cocoa leaves from various countries?
I mean,
Would that be bad?
No, I mean, whatever.
Would that reduce crime?
Probably.
What if there's an import tax into the state or something like that?
I don't think that's going to reduce anything.
Jeff, what do you think?
You probably have some people pretty productive for a while.
I mean, first of all, I'm surprised with this group capitulating to the pharmacy companies.
I'm
What's
not
wrong with you?
capitulating. I'm a realist.
It's just easy to do. It's an easy path.
They're controlled substances. Where do controlled
It'll be
substances
clean.
go? They go to the pharmacy.
Marijuana is also a controlled substance. How do you delineate this?
What? You know what? At the end of the day,
You're making an exception for marijuana.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't make an exception for marijuana at all. I would suggest that, and we've talked about this, that ultimately, and it's not that I like it, it's just what's going to happen. The medical use of marijuana, once it's federally accepted, will go through the normal channels. And or I shouldn't say the medical use, but the medical distribution. The world we know today will end. And as far as rec goes, once it's federally legal and completely and widely available, you'll start seeing it in a lot of the same distribution channels that you're seeing the CBD and hemp products now.
Fine, but we're not going to get there by a federal legalization of heroin. It's going to happen, if at all, by state ballot initiative. And when the state ballot initiative says we can create a tax and regulate system, come get it, pharmaceutical companies are going to say we're not doing it because it's illegal federally. So then what are we left with? Let's be realistic. Let's be realistic in that, yes, that may be inevitably what happens, but that's not going to happen until the federal government starts giving out licenses for that shit, which is be the fucking Ernest and Julio wine of fucking heroin. Just kidding, I don't even know what that means. But, you know, or like bad cocaine or bad crack.
Maybe you're right. Maybe those industries will organically create themselves under the right statutory conditions.
Jeff, what do you say to this? Are you listening?
Peripherally.
Okay, never mind. You seem like you're consumed with some over there. I'm sorry. Jamie, what do you say? Or Alan, jump in.
Okay, the one problem that I have with not letting the pharmaceuticals into heroin is that the danger of those pharmaceuticals that are manufactured. No one's ever died from marijuana use.
Right.
No one's ever died from an overdose. But because of the specific process of manufacturing heroin or cocaine or all those other things, I just don't think that's an acceptable process for somebody to be doing in their basement. And I think the government's going to have to...
No bathtub heroin. It's
right.
not good. Mm-mm.
That's
why I'm saying, man.
Because it's not.
What is the treatment for heroin addiction?
More opiates.
Methadone.
Heroin.
Yeah.
That's
Heroin
what
is
usually
treatment for heroin addiction.
Cannabis. Marijuana has been used.
No, heroin is the treatment for heroin withdrawal.
That's true.
That is the treatment. And then you wean them back and you wean it off so the purities are involved. That's why the heroin is actually sold as a drug. It's prescribed. Should it be controlled?
So is meth.
I mean, what's the question? Should it be reserved to the...
No, should it be legalized?
To the pharmaceutical companies? Or should it be decriminalized?
No, we're talking about, listen, we decriminalize it so people no longer get arrested for it, but it still costs money, and if you're not identifying who is providing the supply, then you've got this lack of public safety, potentially dosing, dirty, and then the question is, who do we want to be in charge of the supply? Do we want to give it out to the pharmaceutical companies? They're not like, if a state ballot initiative made it legal under the state to do all this stuff, and the ballot initiative said you have to tax and regulate like MRTMA, would that be the, I don't know, we got to create you get facilities that are...
I think any way that, turns it into a public health issue as opposed to a public or a criminal justice issue,
I mean,
I
but I'm
fully
saying-
support. I don't care about the.
We
the
all agree that
mechanics.
the legalization of the use or non-criminalizing use, but this second issue, Jeff, because this is the evolution where it takes place, where is that going to come from? We agree that over time, big companies, corporations, Marlboro, all the pharmaceutical will probably
Pfizer.
be in the cannabis game at some point. We're
Eli Lilly.
a little ways away from that, and one of the things that's probably preserving that is the fact that it's still illegal federally. Assuming that it still remains illegal federally for all these other controlled substances, but a state legalizes them and develops a tax and regulate, the arguments of the people surrounding me are that the best to do that, to supply, are going to be a pharmaceutical company. I'm suggesting
companies.
that maybe like the MMFLA and the MRTMA, the licenses allow for those that qualify, that want to take the steps, according to state regulations, we allow them to, make it, to buy it, to transfer it, to sell it, and work interstate tax and regulating it. Why is that so crazy? Why is that so crazy?
It's not crazy. It's just a lot more work than it has to be.
The pharmaceutical companies are not going to be available. They're never going to do it until it's federally state regulated.
I agree with you. I thought.
Well, they're not going to do plant-based. That's not their model. That's not ever going to be their model.
That's the difference between pharmacy and marijuana. Is marijuana is plant, pharmacy is chemicals.
Right. And we're not talking about.
And the hard drugs generally fall in the line of chemicals.
Yeah, and these drugs like methamphetamine. I mean, we see what can happen.
There's a methamphetamine pharmaceutical drug. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I know.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm saying like, not Adderall and that kind of stuff, but like an actual.
Yeah. It's a Schedule II.
You know what? I would even guess this: if you create a situation akin to caregivers or the mom pa evolution of this, I promise you that there would be numbers of different ways that people would figure out how to ingest and participate with those substances that may even be less harmful. I mean, if you think about it. I mean, I'm not advocating any of this. I know it's talking party drugs and stuff, but you may be chewing heroin. I
don't know.
You may be.
I don't know nothing about any of that
patches
shit.
or something like that. I don't know. Something that's more.
Whatever. But I know you shouldn't go to prison for it.
Of course not. But I'm saying in the world of this, if look, think about the evolution of the caregivers creating different products from the plant.
Yeah.
Like now we got diamonds and crystals and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like these are things that maybe they existed before, but they certainly weren't being driven by the technology that exists and the various methods that people may think about consuming it. I mean, they're collectors and stuff. Like where does it end? You know what I mean? So don't tell me that all the same wouldn't come out of, needles and spoons and.
Yeah, I'm
you know
sure
what I mean?
they dress their needles up and put
There may
little
be other
cartoon
ways.
characters
I don't know.
and
There may
shit
be other
on
ways.
them.
I don't know.
Fucking know. But I still say you shouldn't go to prison for it, even though I don't agree with any of it.
The thing is, I think
The supplier, Jim, that's weak. You're we have to talk about where it's going to come from.
I don't have
Because
to talk about shit.
it's
I
still-
just need to say that I don't think people should go to prison
What
for
about the
it.
sellers?
What
all
about
the-
them?
What about the cleanup of
People who
the
are
things
operating
if
a
we have
business model
needle
outside the
exchange?
Do they have to pay taxes? Does everyone feel okay with some guy?
I think everybody should pay taxes. It should be equal. It's just pure legalization.
Supply chain has got to be answered if we're going to talk pure legalization.
If it's just legalized, the supply chain will figure
Statewide.
itself out.
What is it? Federal law says every state can do whatever they want with whatever drugs they want.
Then the supply chain will create itself.
It will.
I don't have to worry about it.
The state then should act to try to regulate it in a way that they can either tax it and somehow
Yeah, for
ensure
sure.
the end user that's some kind of safety.
And the states will create that framework.
Aha! It's not going to be the pharmaceutical company because it's still legal federally.
No, I agreed with you.
You're creating state pharmaceutical companies. What you're doing.
Yeah.
You're opening up a new
Yeah.
green rush for cocaine, heroin.
Could you do it? If the state allowed it, could you do it and get away with it?
Yeah, Senate Bill 660 for hard drugs.
That's right.
Well, that requires the federal government to do it. I'm talking about.
And don't do the hard drugs. And tell your kids not to make bad choices that could impact them in a really
Talk to
negative
your
way.
kids.
I mean, wouldn't it be
Talk to your
appropriate?
kids.
Wouldn't it be
There's something
appropriate
about
if you're creating a scenario where these people have a place to go to use their drugs?
Yeah.
And they need their drugs.
Yeah. That's exactly what will happen.
I mean,
people will have to accept it, and
that should be
people will have to say
so those are like dispensaries in a way.
You
That's like a
guys,
place where what?
In San Francisco, some of the like needle exchange sites and such, they end up having hypodermic needles on the roads.
Probably Nancy Pelosi's district, no doubt.
That's, I think, also something that has to be taken into consideration with this whole rollout, and especially
What it does for the community and stuff like that.
Right.
yeah, the impact to like how you're going to regulate.
The trash.
Yeah, I mean you can't
Look,
just
if you
have all this stuff floating around for people to get sick.
This just came up. They were creating like
Well, that
safe.
happens now.
Jamie,
It's under control.
Right, Jamie. There's some
chance of that happening.
There was a case going on. I remember Charmy had mentioned it, where it involved creating like a safe haven for drug users and whether or not they were
Safe injection sites.
right.
call
So if these facilities that we're talking about, not only so they don't arrest them, they offer them some public
medical
health
aid if
issues.
necessary,
They come to this facility where they can stay.
Right.
They can use their drugs. It's not in the street. It's not on the whatever. And while they're there, they can get more. Because that place becomes like a dispensary,
right?
Because once they're in there, what are you gonna do? You gotta say you can't use it. You gotta detox here. That's the way we're doing. I mean, so if you're really gonna do it, there should be some until the person is able to make their decision, get stabilized. I mean, I don't know if that's your or provide counseling for them to talk them out and through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Anything is better than what we got going on now, because especially with our therapy programs, our rehabilitation programs at a 5% success rate.
Oh, you're being generous. I've read repeatedly that it's under 3 over the course of like 5
and
years.
that's why do we continue on with this?
Yeah.
Why do we keep putting people in these facilities when they don't work?
Right.
I mean,
the only time that people are going to make a change is when they want to.
Yes, sir.
And if they don't want to, then it's not up to us to try and fight it and continue to criminalize them, because we are just giving them more incentive.
There's something to be said about the
continue
theory of the addiction arises out of living in an environment that is prone to be an addict, or a box. You know what I mean? Like the example, like you take a rat and put it in a box with heroin and water and nothing else, it will kill itself by the water or the cocaine. If you put it in a box with a bunch of other rats, boys, girls, things to do, activities, it will sample but not kill itself and still live and thrive. And so it's a new way of looking at things. You take these, because people will have surgeries and they'll be given heavy doses of narcotics and come out of it and go home and not be addicts.
Yep.
How could that be?
Right.
Right? How is it some people, because they have that and nothing else, and they're living in a box? So the idea that we're talking about is their own decision, but, like real genuine, I hate to think government, but some kind of like, some way to empower them so they can pull themselves out, get them a job. I don't know.
Right.
Those kind of things have meaning and, give someone an opportunity instead of just...
No, they introduced them into a system with no mental health programs to speak of, which ultimately we all know is the core cause of most of these drug addiction issues, is a lack of mental health treatment.
Chemical imbalance.
Yeah, and
right?
you throw these people into a system that they'll probably never ever get out of.
Right. Do you think they would have to, these use houses that I'm calling, so that, do you think they'd have to like separate them? And think like the heroin and the meth people would go good in the same house, or you think they'd have to have separate houses?
I'm not sure. I'm
just kidding. I'm joking. Anyone
I think there'd be a lot of data that we'd have to collect. And
I think you got to keep samey. In
In
Australia, there's a similar program, but with alcohol, and they've decided to
Do they keep everybody that drinks whiskey in one room?
No, but it's but they live in this house. It's like a group home for alcoholics that are just hopeless alcoholics. They're never going to quit drinking, so they live in this house. And they get their rations of alcohol when they live in this house, and they drink all day long, and they all get along fine, and they're all just alcoholics.
I find that hard to believe. They all get along fine.
They do.
I can't imagine.
Little day drinking.
I can't remember what show, what documentary I watched that on, but it was quite interesting. Yeah, you would think the alcoholic house would just be in total battles all the time, but these people seemed as happy as they could be.
It's got to be a lot of alcohol to get them to the point where they, pass out like at the end of the.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
They're playing checkers and chess and little.
Where do you think you draw the line? Do you think like the crack group? You draw the line with like cocaine or freebasing get in there?
Crack and cocaine could probably go together, but crack and heroin, I don't think so.
No.
And marijuana can't be around any of them.
What about 151s? Is that
Yeah.
what those are?
Yeah.
Like the cocaine and is that what they are? The
cocaine and
speedball, cocaine and heroin,
or marijuana. I thought. Right.
150 cocaine and
Michael,
marijuana. Yeah, the 51.
Michael, on all the British ships, the British sailors always used to get a daily ration of rum, and I don't recall them ever having major fights on those ships about those rum rations.
Yeah.
Sounds medical to me. Medical rum.
Medical rum ration. It's important. Every ship should have one. Yes, but I think we all agree drugs are bad, but
Yes,
people shouldn't go to prison for them.
No. No.
What's our next topic?
Too many people in prison.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to comment on that. One of the shows we had recently, I don't recall off the top of my head, but we had Jesse Williams' partner, Fred Stieg Nielsen, whose name I always forget, but I was Fred, like a brother in arms. We fought a case out in Mount Pleasant. Enjoyed the time. He came on the show and was talking about some of the attention they were getting from exposing the breathalyzer scandal and having a chance to cross-examine one of the independent contractors that was in charge of producing the validations and verifications of the accuracy of the machine. And it turned out that it was just a bunch of fraud. More attention has been brought to that, and in the article as it indicates the inaccuracies were more widespread than originally believed. And this is a problem, I think, that, and let me back up a second. We're talking about what has developed since the original announcement that there were certain breathalyzers, data masters within different departments that were not properly calibrated. The Michigan State Police made an announcement they were going to be investigating this internally, and they took a number of them off the shelves, and then they were back on. They said, okay.
They had to reset them.
We figured it out.
Yeah,
we took care of it, and we're dealing with it internally.
Yeah.
No report was produced, nothing made to the public, none of the information was turned over, and of course, this is not the way you do this. And
Right.
it lends itself to the problem of the entire lab, police influence, corruption, etc. And Neil Rockheim, my friend, brother-in-arms, also is involved with 2 cases where he's been slaughtering the person that I speak of, who's the third-party auditor for this thing, and he's just been... And likewise, Fred Stieg Nielsen and Jesse Williams did the same, and there'll be more to come about that. But it goes to the bigger problem, which is when you have, the police influencing the lab, or the police collecting evidence that they're going to use against a person, a defendant, and there's some inaccuracy of something that takes place, or some belief that something may have been malfeasance or neglect or something covered up, and the police department, when it's discovered and brought to their attention, does an internal investigation and decides the impact that it has on pending matters, and also makes a decision of what individuals, if any, are going to be held accountable, without any public understanding, without any public input or involvement, all done internally. That's a problem that exists, and one of the reasons why I advocate for the removal of qualified immunity for police officers, because I think if you had these kind of things, these things wouldn't happen if you remove the lack of any liability that they would have. And the hiring of people would change as well if there was liability. But what do we think about this, Alan? What do you think about police departments being able to do their own internal investigations? And remember, Steve Miller is going to tell you what he thinks about this immediately afterwards.
I think that the goal of those internal investigations is to clear the police officers. I think you need independent investigations when there's an investigation needed.
Okay, add this to my list of ballot initiatives. Remember we started last week, a couple weeks ago. We got number 1, adding for every prosecutor's office funded by the state a prosecution or conviction integrity unit. We now have, Alan's adding to this list, a internal investigation integrity unit, right? How do we do that, Alan? We have to have some independent body made up of what? Police officers, roster rabbis, people from Texas, people who wear hats. They can all be on this team that investigates the investigation, right? Reports publicly to it.
Then we should have somebody investigating those folks as well. That's what you start getting into.
You making fun of me?
Yeah.
There you are. You think it's silly? Well, Steve, I want you to speak. I want you to speak on this. What is the pros?
I feel like, because I did as a sergeant at an agency the size that I worked at, I did our internal investigations on my guys on my ship.
You know, we're in the same dilemma again, which is like I call out some shitty shit that goes on across the state. It seems like we never did that at my place, which is fine. I get it. You guys rose above, but I'm saying this discovery here of what they came on to, I doubt was realistically what they reported. Like this is a, I mean.
No, this is different. This is criminal. I'm talking about like your average citizen's complaints or officer did something wrong behavior-wise.
I'm not talking about that.
But for criminal stuff, like we would call in the state police then as the independent agency to investigate something or someone at our agency that may or may not be criminal. If there was a criminal tinge to it, we would call in the state police as the independent agency, and that's
calling
part
in
of
the heavies.
That's part of the state police's role, is to come in and police the police when that needs to be done.
Okay, but what about if it's the state police?
Yeah,
then state police in this there should have been some sort of federal oversight or something.
Okay.
Came in at
Bring in the FBI.
All right, so that's what I'm saying. I wasn't saying, I'm saying when you have the.
It just sounded like we were going towards the tinge of, okay, now we're going to start developing these investigative boards with citizens and police officers and lawyers and everything else, and you start putting all this shit together, it just becomes unreasonable.
Well, okay, you think it should be more. You're not calling for a ballot initiative then. You think it should be more of a.
There needs to be accountability in these police departments. I don't disagree with you there.
The problem is when this kind of thing comes up, the leadership would say, you know what, this doesn't look good, it doesn't smell good, we're going to recuse ourselves from it, we're going to call in some private investigation, or I'm going to contract someone within the state.
That's what should happen.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm saying to you is because the idea that the inaccuracies are more widespread than led on, who was it led on by? The Michigan State Police. What did they say? The inaccuracies, there's not that many of them. Now it's reported it's much more widespread. Therein lies the problem. We could have predicted that because the idea of what we're talking about here, and this is the problem, when you think about and this is the dilemma with all this shit, I was thinking about this the other day, the Dauber motions that we filed, your case, the one up in Isabella with the Fishers, we were right. The judge found a way to not do that, but had they, what would have happened? I mean, the Michigan State Lab cannot show up and testify anymore about marijuana. It would have legalized marijuana in the state of Michigan. At the end of the day, they would have had to figure out another way to do this at the time. At the impact of them being disqualified. Who else is testing marijuana and show up in court? If they arrest them with some green leafy material, they got to send it to the lab and they got to produce a report. If they're not allowed to do that anymore, what's the green leafy material? Who's going to say it's illegal? They're going to have to act quick and figure something out, right? So.
Well, we're probably going to find that out soon with one of our cases.
But the point I'm trying to make is that the impact of a court making that finding, the impact was huge. And in one of the cases, the judge said to me, you can't work this out, Komorn. I'm like, no, we can't work it out. He goes, what do they offer? He gets involved with it. And then he says he goes, do you think for 1 second if I grant your motion, he's not going to appeal it? The Court of Appeals isn't going to reverse me no matter what? Like the Court of Appeals is going to let this shit go away, that we'll just fucking undo the, you know what I mean? Like he knows the politics. This is no longer law. This is a fucking machine. $660 million a year. You're going to say you can't operate when they got to give money back? You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. This program here, this breathalyzer thing, is a fucking moneymaker. $1 million machine. I wish when I get older I could own a breathalyzer machine and test and convict people for money. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a, I would say that sarcastically, it's a business that thrives, right?
Just
It
sit back and
thrives.
watch the money roll in.
Thrives.
Yeah.
And the point is that identifying within the money machine that they have inaccuracies and it's more widespread, they got to shut it down, break it down, admit fault, give money back, undo convictions. Why are we doing this? You're the state police. You're supposed to. So this is. I mean,
there's more stuff coming out now that it's more widespread than what was led on initially.
The point is, Steve, that it was led on that it was not widespread by the Michigan State Police.
Right.
And now that cases are being exposed from independent investigation, from lawyers picking at shit, seeing, the extent of it.
Do we need to do another FOIA? Were they holding back?
No, because we've got it all from cross-examination now, because we've got the materials, duplicated calibration reports that have, different results, like summaries, that were reported by people that never did the reports in a lot of ways. All of the...
They should be dismissing all these cases.
But you understand the point I'm making is that how much...
Reversing conviction.
Here you go. I said this before. The idea that, of the police training, Steve, and specialty training, what was that? What was that meme? You got some good memes?
Yeah, that one, I like that one.
Right. Steve, the amount, you take the percentage of training for, police school and even probably within the department, a ton of it is in the drunk driving area, right? I mean, most of the patrol officers are unequivocally expected to be able to manage drunk driving on their own, right? Or with a partner backup. Or
at the end of their training program, they'd be able to do it.
Right. So, and you can't say that for murder investigations, rape investigations. You know what I mean? Like the same. So it shows you that within the basics, that is a priority that's expected to be able to do that, because you're going to go and be patrolling and right. Yeah. So with that, and the amount of money and investment, the amount of money invested not just in the people but in the training and the protocols to get them skilled enough, and then the after oversight of different officers overseeing. So this goes on and following all that through. It is a huge investment of time, money, resources, liability, all that stuff. And then you got the machines, right? Then you got the breathalyzer. Then you got the the easy access to the police and the hospitals and the arraignments at night to get the blood. And I mean, there's so much money that it goes into the activity of people in the drunk drive. Now you got citizens that are drunk as fuck driving in the middle of the night. So I'm not.
We need to get them off the road.
I'm not.
I'm in agreement.
But my point is, there's so much that goes into it. If it turns out that they're cheating all the time,
right?
This is
then
the
what
Chandra.
do we have?
Like, what the fuck? What do you do with that? So they had every intentions of not letting it be known that they've been cheating all the time. They wanted to minimize it. They wanted to say there's these 5 units that are doing it. We pulled it. We fixed it. It's back. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here, folks.
Nothing to see here.
Just move along. And and I said at the time, there's no way they're disclosing this the way they should. Another great example was we did a Planet Green Trees about this too. This Officer Ferguson, remember? Where he, from Oakland County Drug Task Force, they one of the prosecutors thought he was lying on a search warrant. Called it out. Did they charge him with a crime? No. Did they fire him? No. Is he working someplace else? Yes. Oakland County prosecutor said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do an internal audit of all the cases that he was involved in.
We'll make sure there's no shenanigans going on.
Did they make a report? Did they give a disclosure? Did they disclose this stuff
I'm sure they disclosed it to themselves.
As Brady or not Brady material? Alan, where are you? You got to say anything about that?
I'm here. Ferguson was one of the police officers on the raid on Mr. Hartwick. The famous case Hartwick and Tuttle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. He raised that issue, didn't he?
And Randy Crowell too.
Right, and the issue in Hartwick was the plant count, and Hartwick said he had 72 plants, and Ferguson said he had 77. When it went to court on retrial, the judge still took Ferguson's count, and that was after he'd been determined to be lying. That was after the Oakland County prosecutor dismissed all his other pending cases where his testimony was critical, and I think he was fired from the Oakland County prosecutor's office, sheriff's office, but he's working someplace else up north now.
Correct.
They dismissed the active cases, but the ones in which there was already convictions and stuff, a lot of those never got addressed again.
Right. And when Harwick went to retrial, it was established at retrial that he was lying, and he didn't testify at the retrial, but they had the officer who was with him testify. And he just basically testified as to Ferguson's hearsay count on the plant, and that was enough to sustain the conviction on the retrial. And it's wrong, in my opinion, but it got affirmed on appeal.
Right. So the idea is that that's one example of, that's an example of like not disclosing, not knowing, and using this false data, these inaccuracies to let convictions take place and not disclosing it. Not
and judges and prosecutors will still find a way to go along with it. That's what's the most insane part.
It's insane.
I know.
They'll still find ways to try and justify
nothing that I'm saying.
Prosecutions that are based on complete bullshit.
Well, it's been that way all along, and the whole point is that the bullshit game that they have come up with, the way that they have made this into their own science, right? Like these guys and girls get out of school and they're able to make an arrest, make it, and get, they get conviction after conviction. If they do it right, it's pretty airtight, right? If you fucking write your reports right and video, you
do your job properly.
Do your job right. But one of the cornerstones of this is the machine, right? And the machine is, it's really interesting because there's two counts that arise out of a drunk driving case. Usually it's you were driving in a way that you're visibly impaired by alcohol, meaning the way you're driving the vehicle is substantially different, not unlike a prudent driver would drive, or impaired by alcohol, influenced by or intoxicated. That's one thing. The other thing is there's a per se breathalyzer charge, which means that even if you were able to cast doubt at a trial that the person was not driving badly, you can get rid of that. They're in a vehicle, it's operating, and they have a breath alcohol level which is based on this machine, right? That's greater than 0.08. And they come in there with this piece of paper that the jury has no real understanding of how you get this piece of paper and what those numbers mean on it, right? Just a piece of paper with a number, but they know and have been built in their head from really good, and this is part of this whole thing, the really good understand that drink, you drive, you lose. Drink, you drive, you go to jail. And these are the numbers. And don't think about it. It's just this number. Now, Alan could tell you, I could tell you a number of different ways where, people may have a false positive for a breathalyzer. There's different ways that the sample given can create that. There are steps taken to avoid that. They're supposed to be. They're not always followed. All right, Steve, like blood in the mouth, liquor in the mouth. You're supposed to have a 15-minute observation period before you to make sure they're not burping, regurgitating, because any kind of fluid in the mouth will offset the machine, right?
Take a look in the mouth, make sure they don't have anything or keep it in their mouth.
And this is expanded because now it's like they don't make you stare at them, but be within the vicinity. Just make sure you wait 15 minutes. It's kind of become. But the idea is that the test can really be false unless you know that they're not burping or regurgitating.
I mean, you should, as an officer, in my opinion, you should sit there and stare at them for 15 minutes.
But they're usually,
some of us got, and I did it a few times. I'd get into a routine where I'd check their mouth, read them their rights, and then I would start going about my business, getting the breathalyzer. I was in vicinity with them. I thought that, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? To properly do this, I should sit here and watch him for the 15 minutes to make sure he hasn't burped. He hasn't put anything in his mouth. He hasn't tried to spit something up. I mean, there really should be that much attention to detail to this if the officer is doing it properly.
I had a case, I remember.
Most of them probably are not.
A case in like 48th District Court, and the guy, I remember it's so funny because he's a guy like it's like a guy that was a professor. Like he was actually a really smart guy. I think he was like a astrophysicist or something at U of M, and he was in Birmingham. I remember it was like a snowy day, and he got in his car and drove off. The car looked like a marshmallow. Like had all this like he forgot to like dust off his car, So any cop that sees, and then there's like cops everywhere in Birmingham. Like at 10 o'clock they're out Thursday night. They're just looking for shit to kind of drive them this way, And they pulled him over, and he just got in the car. It was like 5 seconds, And
yeah, but with all that snow rolling around,
I think
they
it
saw
was
him
like they put him
immediately.
for not having his lights on, but there's snow blocking his lights, so they couldn't see his light. But anyways, during the exchange at the side of the road or whatever, he had some tooth problem, he was bleeding, bloody tooth, and had some medication. So he was talking about that, and they didn't wait on the observation period. They didn't, after he kept talking about it, they didn't
go get blood.
They didn't get blood. Exactly. That's what.
I mean, that's immediately. If somebody's got a bleeding mouth, all right, we're going to go read the rights, and I'm going to offer you blood tests.
Right.
That's how to do that properly, not what these guys fucked around with.
Right.
So they did.
I mean, there is a way to do things properly, usually, most times.
And they ended up dismissing the case. But all right.
Good.
So what I was saying was that this per se number.
That's pretty good in the 48th district.
Oh, it was huge. You have no idea.
Who was it in front of?
It may have been in front of Kimberly Small.
Wow, that's impressive.
Maybe D'Agostini. I don't know. So what I'm saying here is that the second count, the per se, begins with the premise that every juror knows that .08 is the number. Mm-hmm. That no matter what you're going to say or do to crap on the breathalyzer guy, they know what danger is. They know this guy in his shiny outfit that went trained and is doing this, level 3 certification to do the data mass or whatever.
Something like that, a level 3. Yeah.
So, and he's not doing this, and he looks nice and he's got his badge and stuff.
Yeah, he's
and
legit. He can be
he's
trusted.
Legit, and he's there for public safety. And,
Yeah.
he's been trained in this area.
And like Steve said, people don't want drunk assholes driving around.
And his
Right.
yes, no one disputes that, right? But there are.
I'm not.
Listen.
No, I'm with you 100%.
But now we're on the he's not drunk anymore.
Right.
We're just
Yep.
fighting this per se.
100%.
And the
Yep.
ticket comes out, and you're fighting a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And the piece of paper and all that it's worth, and all this folklore that has been, bred into the DNA and the brains of your potential juror that say, oh yeah, .08 is the number. We know this. Over .8, you're going to jail. We're going to convict you.
Mm-hmm.
It's premised on the accuracy of this fucking test. Okay, the whole thing. Right, and how they do it, and how they get it accurate, and how they calibrate it, and when they get there, it is golden, within .001% of error in either direction. It's on that number, and we did 2 tests and see how they are. And here's the calibrate. None of it's there. When none of it's there, and you realize that not just none of it's there in the regular calibration, but all the pieces of the machine that have to be calibrated, pipettes and shit like that, wet gas, dry gas, and the purchasing of those. They're just, they're equating this into the error rate based upon the purchase by the vendor. If it comes in a box that says, here's our error rate, work it in instead of actually. So,
has a judge ever dismissed a case based on what they thought is a bad breathalyzer or bad breathalyzer procedure?
Listen,
or do they just automatically accept it as golden law and they will not go against it? How do the judges rule on it? Even with an observation time argument. Maybe that officer was fucking around, typing in his shit, not really watching the guy.
That's not
the
good
judges
enough.
won't dismiss the case.
Not for that.
No.
Not for that. And most of the time they're going to say...
That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Well,
sometimes the judges will throw out the breathalyzer test result. And they won't allow it if it's too extreme, like not making the 15-minute observation.
You've seen it done? You've seen a judge dismiss it?
Yeah. Not dismiss it. I've seen them not allow the breathalyzer
to be admitted.
Result in court.
And
the guest box.
And ultimately, that's where it should be, right?
Well,
it should be that, just like with marijuana, it's easy enough to prove that someone was drunk and behind the wheel. I mean, we've all seen someone on the road drunk, and a cop knows how to spot it. I assume there's special training that'll teach you how to do it even better than the layman like myself.
I'll follow 2 cars home tonight that I'll know are drunk.
See? So at that point, it's like just prove through your training that there was poor driving, and prove that it was due to the fact that they were under the influence of an intoxicating beverage. And there you go. Boom. Conviction. Easy peasy. And if you want to use the data master as supplementary evidence, more power to you.
First of all, I want to say...
This per se stuff.
Yeah, Alan, the idea that the breathalyzer test gets thrown out as a regularity, I would say does not happen.
No.
I would say that if it happens, it's a unique situation that includes some other extreme facts, like actually not just not observing, but seeing someone burping or regurgitating or spitting up or having some evidence of some, you know what I mean? Like it's not like the lack of the fluid there and not observing. It's like the not observing and or evidence of fluid or you know, I had a case with GERDs, you know, the what is it? I don't know what's GERDs?
It's esophageal reflux disease.
Reflux disease, right? So the idea of that is that, you know, the esophagus, which takes in what, air? Is that right?
No, the
food.
Yep.
Right. So you got the windpipe and esophagus is open. When you breathe in, it closes, right? So people that have this disease,
and a lot of people that have bad acid reflux.
Bad acid reflux, but you have to understand. So the breath that's given for the data master is from your lungs.
It's
and
artificially high.
Contemplates all of the moisture of the breath, you know, the concentration of the breath sample that's given. And what happens is if the GERDs has the esophagus open, so when the windpipe, when the breath goes out of the lungs over the esophagus has food and liquor in it, that concentration there is completely different than the concentration coming from the lungs.
Yep.
And it has like the windpipe effect of like pulling up the unprotected esophagus, stomach fluids into it and changes the nature of the sample. See what I'm saying? And in fact, one of the tests, one of the new questions on one of the, you know, tests, maybe even the arrest sheets or the, you know, is whether they have GERDs or not. I mean, it's sometimes listed. You ever seen that?
I think I have, possibly.
But
it's been a few years.
But I mean, so I'm saying there's some actual things that offset the machine, right? There's some genuine things there, but this is something that is, it just cuts into the entire brick institution of how they get a conviction. See what I'm saying? Like, just take for a second if they're a little bit off every time. How many arrests to get people that are on the money 0.08, you know, and they don't, you know what I mean? And it's just a little, it's off enough where it would be a 0.07.
That's why it should be the other way. And if you're a 0.06 and you're driving erratically and you're impacted at 0.06 to that level, you should go to jail.
I think so,
and
too.
if you're at 0.12, same thing. And if you're at 0.08, if you're driving in an unsafe manner and you've been drinking and the officer can demonstrate that, then I'm sorry, you don't belong on the road. And at the end of the day, like Steve said, you got to pull them off. It's a safety issue.
Somebody may not be... They may kill somebody before they...
Yeah, but as a country, we can't contemplate what might happen in the future. And if there's no evidence... I mean, maybe someone at 0.08, I assume especially a very large person probably, is not as intoxicated at that level as someone that is you know, smaller. I don't know. I don't know the science behind it.
It could be that. Then you have the... you know, hardcore drinkers versus people who don't drink a lot. You may have a very heavy guy who doesn't drink very often, might have 2 beers and be messed up, you know.
That's an interesting point. I do think that many of the people that get
a tolerance factor
drawn into the world of drunk driving convictions, I think there's a widespread, but you will find a large percentage of them are people that don't normally drink. You know, they're coming home from a hockey game, opening day, party, a bar mitzvah, wedding, you know what I mean? And it's like a rarity. They found they're at a party, they have a couple extra drinks, something weird happens, you know what I mean? They don't normally drive. That, you know, that happens quite a bit. You know what I mean? I don't think people, but then you also have people that I think are...
Yeah, but they should be punished, right? If they're driving in a way that's unsafe to you and I, and they've been drinking.
Well, I say that they may be... I mean, there's a difference between being...
And I'm not saying extreme. I mean, I think, you know, being arrested, thrown in jail, and going through that experience and then having to do, you know, probation is probably enough for most people to say, wow, that was a mistake. But
I think, you know, I think the gauge, right, I have a tough time with the gauging of the, even though there's whatever the number. At one point it was 0.15 in Michigan.
Yep.
How can?
That's why again.
That's pretty drunk.
Yeah.
That was when the legislatures respected a drinking man. Just kidding. They don't do that anymore.
They had the old dial-in deal back then. It was the old breathalyzer.
Oh yeah.
What did they call that thing? There was you had to have special training for that. They had this thing It's like, I used to look at that thing because it phased out as I came in and I saw the old one operating. I'm like, this looks like they could make this thing read whatever they wanted it to say. That's what it looked like to me.
Of course they did. You know why, Steve? Because probably 99.9% of the time, the officer knew if the person was drunk or not.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I might have heard about some guys saying that, well, yeah, I think he's about a .12.
Nah.
Dialer in.
My God.
That shit, I think, went on with the old breathalyzer
dialer in
thing. Those guys, the testers knew how to dial it in.
Here's a couple other interesting facts. You know that.
And then they were the magicians that could testify to the magic of all that.
Do you know how many other
turning of the dial
experts there are for the defense that have been qualified to testify about the accuracy of the data master in Michigan?
0.
Yeah.
0. Do you know this?
Yeah.
Think about this for a second. They will not qualify.
It's a black box. It's important that it remain a black box.
Because the machine that they have no other. I mean, they all work on the infrared, GCMS, whatever the.
Yeah, but it's proprietary.
Right. So they can't get somebody. Now people have bought the machines afterwards, but then they change the model. Like they buy like an off, like on
and they get away with it because they can take a known sample and have the machine spit out the right number.
Let me tell you what happened. I had a guy.
It's the only reason.
I had a guy testify, try to get him. I may even think I started the whole trial with again. You're going to hear from expert, blah, blah, blah. And he's going to tell you that this is a bunch of bullshit. And then after that starts, the judge says, well, we're going to voir dire to see whether he qualifies. So he gets on the stand and testifies to his use and experience with the data master machine. They halt the proceedings. It's out of the hearing of the jury. We're just determining whether he's qualified or not. They go and call the hotline at the Michigan State Police. I hear them going like, what's his name? What's his name? They got a list of the people that may have ever been close to this fucking machine that aren't police officers. He's not on the list. I know what you're talking about. No way. They were, like it's like seriously, it was insane. So when you have that surrounding this machine that's producing the results that they've, it's truly propaganda. It's like that people don't know shit. Piece of paper comes out. It says .08. That means you convict. It is beat into us. You know what I mean? Everybody knows it's.
Yeah. But as the devil's advocate, Michael, we got the control here. We have got this known sample that we test, and the machine spits out the right number every single time. So why wouldn't it spit out the right number with your
obviously
client?
The machine has to be calibrated, and the sample has to
But
be
I did. I calibrated it with the known sample.
But the machine itself comes with rules that say, in order for it to work, it's got to be manufactured every 180 days. They're not doing that. They're supposed to calibrate it every week. It's got to be within a certain percentage of error. They're forging that stuff
I
too.
mean, that's the situation at hand. I mean, just the fact that you can't get any insight into the way the machine works. I mean, it's truly a black box.
Right. Nobody knows. Right. It's theirs to play with. Theirs to investigate. Theirs to say. You know what I mean? And this is it's a scam in a way. It's like you gotta.
Well, it's not a scam.
Well, it's a scam if the calibrations are being not properly overseen, that they're forging the results and perpetuating.
That's all a huge problem.
It's accuracy.
But that's a problem.
And then you're arresting people and getting them into court, and they got to.
But that's a different problem than it being proprietary. Because the fact that it's proprietary does not negate the fact that this shit that they pulled, this is just bad science.
It's terrible.
It's bad science. And you can't be doing bad science when people are ending up in jail and having real life consequences.
Freedoms away. That is it's huge. We have so taken for granted the fact that getting your freedom taken away in this country, it's like not a big deal anymore.
Right.
I mean, people go into jail all the time losing their freedom. And we don't really care how good the science is. We put them in jail. We're just going to put people in jail and rip people's freedoms all in a country to where we boast about how free we are.
Yep. And you've said it, Michael, that this is just another crime lab episode. That's all it is. It's a complete
It's unacceptable.
disregard for the science.
Unacceptable. And they just want it to just brush under the rug. Nobody's going to talk about it anymore. It
Right.
doesn't matter that it's more widespread than what we originally put out. We're sweeping her under the rug. It'll go away.
Right.
It's going to go away, Jim.
Yeah.
And we'll continue on with bad science or whatever else the fuck it is we're going to do and remove people from their freedom.
Nothing's going to happen with this.
No.
No
there's
convictions are
not.
going to be overturned.
Nope.
I mean, we're the only
is
ones
there-
still talking about
Is
it.
there even a way to fight it?
I mean, look, we had them with their, you know what, in the mashed potatoes in the other case, and
nothing
they
happened.
didn't undo convictions. Like, there's no. Tried to sue and get some remedies, and then they fixed it after the fact. And I mean, some cases still go on. I mean, it's insane. I don't. You know, nobody cares. It's not that nobody cares. It's like the courage it would take to offset or undo, or as the judge said in Isabel when he said, if you don't think they're going to reverse ban appeal, Mr. Komorn, and you, Mr. Prosecutor, I'm about to overturn your apple cart or whatever he said to him, because he thought it was all bullshit anyways. You know, you better get, he was just using his leverage, but, you know, it's a bigger political, you know, it has a huge impact. I mean, I don't know the way to do it. They need to be, you know, how are you gonna formulate a meaningful change if everything we're saying is somewhat right? You know what I mean? It's somewhat true. It shouldn't be. There shouldn't be that much bad potential truth against the lab. We know it's true. We know that they're fucking up the data master. We know they're fucking up the synthetic thing, and arguably with the THC in the blood, they don't offer an error rate for that either, which is another topic that.
Yeah, but that those tests are usually done by hospitals. That's a different issue. What?
The blood is drawn there.
Yeah.
But they
send it to the MSP lab.
Just like they draw blood at the
Oh,
hospital.
I didn't realize
It's a
that.
little box. It's a little kit.
Well, that's silly. Why wouldn't they just test it at the hospital?
Chain of command type issue, I guess. I don't know.
Do you know? You know.
Not chain of command, but
so they don't.
chain of custody,
So here you go. They don't report an error rate. They're required to report an error rate. All science requires, if you're going to produce a number, a value of some kind, you have to say what the error rate is on it, right?
Yeah, and it shouldn't be 30%.
So they don't report it on the lab report. Why don't they do that?
Because the customer didn't ask for it.
The customer is the prosecutor.
Right.
So the point I'm getting at here is this is absurd, right? This is completely antagonistic to, and it goes on, and nobody seems to care, and it draws all these people into this menagerie of cases because they've got a THC level. I mean, look at the way that they test for marijuana in most of the probation departments. You know what they have you do? Pee in a cup.
Yeah, pee in a cup.
What are they testing for when they pee in a cup?
The metabolite.
Right. Is that illegal?
Well, it is if you're on probation.
It's not a controlled substance.
Yeah, but you and I both know judges
you're
can
on
pretty much
probation,
do
you're
whatever
not
the hell
free
they
anymore.
want to do. Just like they can throw you into jail for using alcohol.
None of these tests. I mean, think about it. Think about what think about what you just said. You got a urine test that's testing a metabolite of
I'm not saying I
of a
agree.
non-controlled substance.
Yeah.
That would never be admissible in court anywhere, past the Dauber standard anywhere.
I'm just saying that you're not.
And
I don't
people
think
are
you're going to
getting
win
dragged-
that one.
What's
Maybe
that?
you will. I hope you do.
I have a dilemma. I'm actually trying to talk out my case here a little bit. I think my argument is that the system's broken and probation is a successful financial institution that.
It is. It's a jobs program. It's good. Lots of people get
Jamie
jobs. The P testers get the jobs. The probation officers get the jobs. The support staff gets the jobs.
10:19. I didn't realize how late it is. Did I go on too long
we
there?
should get going.
Alan, what do you think?
It's time to go.
Did I go on too much there?
Yep. So
It's been a good show.
Yeah.
time to cut it.
Yep.
I got to clean up the mess.
What, Alan? Go.
I just point out you're making that comment about having
Well,
people
Sharon,
arrested.
It's good for your back. It hurts your damn knee.
Hold on, Steve. Alan's trying to get his point out, or he froze up. Go ahead.
No, I didn't freeze up. There's people who get arrested for violating their probation for having carboxy-THC in their system. And even though that's not an illegal substance, I just want to point out there's a case that is gone to the Michigan Supreme Court on whether or not you can convict somebody for cocaine metabolite, where that was the only evidence in the blood. They were arrested for drug driving, and there wasn't cocaine in their blood, but there was a metabolite, and that was enough for a jury conviction, and the Supreme Court's going to look at that because the metabolite is not a controlled substance. So can you make a drug driving case off that? And the Supreme Court's going to look at that.
Well, for purposes of, I think I understand that, and I think it's paralleling itself with the stare decisis case of People versus Darer, right?
Yes, and Fiesel.
And Fiesel. And, but I don't know that the idea of the metabolite will transform itself into a probationary oversight. It should. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're talking about it for purposes of beyond a reasonable doubt, right? The standard of proof in a probation violations preponderance, right?
Yes.
And to determine preponderance of your metabolite in your blood, then there's a. I mean, I had a client that was sent to jail for 3 days because he had a metabolite of cocaine in his blood, in his urine. That's different than being convicted of drunk driving, right?
Yes.
Bond conditions could be don't take any drugs, and the way we're going to figure this out is you have a metabolite for cocaine. Unless there's some other method of how, that metabolite is created. Poppy seeds, secondhand cocaine smoke. I don't know. Are those things?
I think the secondhand would be.
Yeah, what do you know about that? Secondhand cocaine smoke?
I don't know.
I think it would be a thing.
I think so.
I suppose it's possible. Great show, Michael. Very good show.
We're shutting it down.
All right. Thank you for listening, Jeff. Thanks for being so participating. I hope you're getting a lot done over there. Love you, brother. And love you, my man. And thank you, Jim and Amanda, for sticking it out. Steve, no finger pointing. Steve, just kidding. Thank you for participating tonight. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Good conversation.
Dessert teas and the spread.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Wonderful.
And Alan and Jeff, all right, we'll see you guys. Jamie and
like a dessert tea.
Alyssa McCormick, if you're still out there, thank you. And we'll be back next week. More stuff to talk about. Was the election claimed yet or not?
No.
Okay, good.
Unless it just happened.
All right, good.
But we all know who won. We all know.
Everybody remember to subscribe and like Amanda's YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
You can suggest they do that for the
And the Planet
and the
Green
Planet
Trees
Green Trees also maybe.
and Komorn Law,
All right, good.
too.
All right, shut it
Yeah,
down.
subscribe,
Good.
subscribe and like the Komorn Law on Planet Green
All right.
Trees too.
Shut it
Thank you,
down.
Alan.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan, and nationally, and internationally, and even in Spaceland. There's an argument that we evolved from the cannabis plant. Let's just be honest, okay?
Ow, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
420th episode.
If you're a connoisseur, you're going to want the good stuff. And if you want the good stuff, you're going to go for the mom and pop stuff because that's the good stuff.
It's just a real pleasure to come here and congratulate you on your 420th show, and thank you for having me on a few times over the 420.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.